It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. Fucking hours. It costs that much cause I don't have superpowers. Superpowers. So you need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. You need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours.
Shut up, bitch!
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
James Woods can say is, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. When a Bowen turned into a vampire, all James Woods could say was, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. When he became Peter's best friend, they sat around the house and said, secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. And you know that James Woods practices lines real well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout. Ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. When they know that he's an actor, the best of them all, when he says, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. Reese's Pieces on the floor and watch him come a saying, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. And you know that James Woods practices lines real well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout. Ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary, ooh, I'll be secondary. Secondary.
Fucking thing sucks.
like we just did this. The hell? It's like deja vu all over again. Hello again. Yes, this is the second part of your double feature for Extra Bulla Live this evening. Not one, but two shows. Ooh, you must be a college student because you have attended Lucky You. So anyway, I bring the cheese, as always. Good to see everybody. If you were here earlier at 6 p.m. Eastern, we had the lovely and talented Misty Winston talking about the event that's coming up for Julian Assange. I'll pop it up one more time. That's coming up April 11th, 4 to 6 p.m. in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Justice, 10th and Pennsylvania Avenue, or as I like to call it, my corner. Bitch better stay off my corner. It's not my corner. Hey, stop it with the music there. We got to beat up this old man so you can like, share, and subscribe to the show. Oh, the humanity. Now, fuck that guy. He's got good health care. My guests tonight, I've been on before, and I always love talking to these guys. They are the co-hosts of Chicago Corner. Let me go ahead and bring them in. Hopefully this works. Survey says. All right, there we are. The magic of television. Guys, you are up, and everybody can see your wonderful faces. There, Ed looks like he's you look a little shady there, Ed.
I was doing my News Brothers little outfit here only because my eyes were hurting, but I'm gonna take my sunglasses off now. I can't see a damn thing. Can't see a damn thing.
I can't see, god damn it. What was that, a jerky voice? I can't see so good. Yeah.
Sadly, I left my sunglasses in the car, Ed. Otherwise, I would have brought them with myself.
Okay.
That's right, because you are the News Brothers, right? Is that right?
We called ourselves that in the past on Chicago Corner. That's a phrase that actually was shared with a live chatter when I was doing a Hardlands Media show, and I thought that's a great phrase. So since they decided not to use it, Ed and I started using it. The News Brothers. Although we haven't really formally integrated it into the show, we refer to ourselves as that every once in a while, but maybe we should start formally integrating that, Ed.
Or at least whenever we feel like wearing sunglasses and a hat. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, Uncle Warren, can we do the opening show chant of goodness?
What is that?
I would like to lead the live stream in an opening chant here. So please everybody, please repeat after me.
Oh, okay. Is this like a loyalty oath, Ed?
Oh no, it's absolutely silly. Okay, repeat after me. Ooh-ah.
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 Pisa.
Pisa. Ooh-ah, pisa.
Kende.
Ooh-ah.
Pisa.
Kende. Well, you can't say it too many times because you'll conjure a demon, or my landlord.
Oh, okay.
Who is a demon? He's a little bit. Yeah, I think he's got a Beetlejuice thing going on there, so we don't want to tempt fate. But that was very nice, Ed. Thank you. Yes, that's those are my guys.
What does that mean?
Piece of candy.
Oh, it's just the lyrics from a song that Warren plays at the front end of the show.
Okay.
That is the theme song for Extra Bulla Live. It's by a group called Hamburger Hobos, and the name of the song is called Hard on Candy. And basically the song itself is about the episode of Family Guy where James Woods is on there, and they leave a trail of Reese's Pieces for him, and he picks up each one and goes, ooh, a piece of candy. And then he picks up another one, ooh, a piece of candy. So these guys in North Mississippi, my friends, these musicians, said that would be a hell of a song. And little did they know, 20 years later, it was going to be the theme song to some rando live stream on the internet. So
yeah, sometimes it takes 20 years for the payoff, but it's worth it, isn't it, Uncle Warren?
Well, I
It is.
apologize. I did not recognize that because I normally tune into Extra Bulla after the show is started because I'm always like running late on catching up. So I don't think that I've ever heard the theme song since I've tuned in later, but I will have to make sure to tune in earlier so I can enjoy that song.
That just tells me you're not a super fan. You're not a super fan, Jerry, is it?
I was listening to you and Misty on the car ride home, and all I could do was like shake my head. Yes, yes, yes. Everything you guys were talking about with how much this is all by design. And, people are asleep. And, I could really empathize with okay, put the pizza down.
Right.
Put the pizza down.
I haven't had supper yet, Ed, you ass.
And I haven't eaten yet.
Now you got to mail me the pizza. Go ahead, Jerry.
I can empathize with her nihilism and existentialist viewpoint. It's like we do this because we feel a responsibility and a commitment, but a lot of times, and I share this with Ed on our show, I'm like, I just feel like we're pissing in the wind because as much as we're screaming from the rooftops, and you said this also, Warren, during the show with Misty, I'm very pessimistic about this stuff too. And at some point, I'm just like, why are we still doing this? Is anybody listening? Is anything going to change when such grand, I'm going to go there, forces of darkness, okay? Because this is a forces of darkness moment where Misty even mentioned it's 2023. I've said this to Ed. When I was in high school, things looked like they were progressively moving forward in a good direction. And then you, Warren, mentioned how Ronald Reagan fucked it all up, right? And we're just going backwards in time now to this mindset of people either don't care, don't feel that anything they do is going to make a difference, or they're doing it as almost in vain because they don't want to feel like they're giving up. I don't know how we got off on this topic. Oh, but it was to reference the fact I do listen to your show, Warren. I am a loyal listener and fan. So
all the way back to that. Yeah, you just well, that's the thing. You get a little cushion at the beginning of the show, you let people settle in. So like the diehards like Ed, he knows. Ed's always here at the beginning. Because he digs that tune. And I dig that tune too. Those are some very eclectic cats that do that music. So I do it twofold. I have music that is like copyright free on the show because most of it is people that I know in real life that they're great musicians, and two, I ain't gonna get the copyright ding from the man. So it's a win-win for everybody. So
I am constantly appealing copyright strikes for music that are, or clips that are within the realms of fair use, like Whack-A-Mole on our Chicago Corner channel. I mean, it got so weird that, the opening that, actually I have to give Warren credit for this, because when you had us on the first time, you compiled a bunch of clips from Chicago movies, which I loved, especially Jake and Elwood. It's 106 miles to Chicago. So I stole that from Warren for the beginning of our Chicago Corner intro. But there was a music video on another channel. You send me the bill. There's a music video on YouTube on another channel that uses the same Jake and Elwood clip before the song starts. Yeah. So that's a fair use clip. We've been getting copyright strikes from YouTube's algorithm from that music video that's using that same clip in fair use that strikes us and was holding our revenue in escrow until I had to, I think at least 6 times, I had to appeal it and say it was a fair use clip. That channel doesn't own Dan Aykroyd saying that. We're all using it in fair use. Finally, I've noticed this week, we're not getting those strikes anymore anytime we use our intro. But the YouTube algorithm and the copyright strikes and the fact that AI does not, and why would it, understand or recognize fair use? You would think that a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation like Google would actually have live eyes monitoring things. But no, everybody's using AI now and making our job.
Yeah. Live eyes costs money, Jerry.
Well, and no one wants to pay anybody, right, Ed? That's a whole other subject. But anyway.
Anywho, speaking of being skeptical and not trusting the government, let's talk about elections.
How about that Chicago election, everybody?
Oh boy,
the king of Segway, everybody. So you got tomorrow, I believe, is the runoff for the mayoral election in Chicago. between Johnson and Vallis. That's correct.
Yeah, there's also
So
14 aldermanic runoffs too, because they were all too close to call. They were like within like a percentage or of 50%, or nobody got more than 50%. So it's going to be an interesting show tomorrow, because we're going to cover the results as they come in, at least the ones that we get to see. Some of these we might not see until tomorrow.
It's going to be a nail biter.
Or the day after, I mean.
What's very interesting about this election, Warren, is that, and I was old enough to comprehend elections back in 1985 when Harold Washington ran in Chicago and ultimately won. Harold Washington was a black congressman, and when he ran in the Democratic primary against Jane Byrne, who was the incumbent, and Richie Daley, two whites. And it's been speculated, and I think with fair assessment, that the reason that neither of the whites won is because the white vote got split. And Harold Washington won the Democratic primary for mayor in a city where normally there is no Republican contender. But at that time, whites across the city, because one of their white candidates did not win that election, they decided to rally behind a Republican candidate named Bernie Epton, who ran on a platform of vote for Bernie Epton before it's too late. He was this, and it was interesting because Epton had a history before that of being involved in progressive civil rights causes. But at the moment that the city felt, oh my God, a black guy is possibly going to be mayor, all of the Democrats, a lot of white Democrats, started rallying behind Bernie Epton.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing that reflected right now in this election, right down to the fact that it looks like Paul Vallis is using Bernie Epton's stylist. He's like his clone. And we've joked on our show, the only reason Paul Vallis won this nomination against a black candidate who's Brandon Johnson is because Bernie Epton is dead. So this is the guy they're rallying around. But Brandon Johnson has a history of carpetbagging to different cities.
No, Vallis, you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Vallis has a history of carpetbagging to other cities as a consultant, as a school CEO, basically integrating charter school systems in other cities where a lot of people can make a lot of money, leaving that city in shambles with a public school system that's then further destroyed. And now he's in Chicago. And Paul Vallis has lived in Palos Heights, which is a suburb around Chicago. So, of course, naturally last year, he decided to rent a bachelor apartment in Bridgeport so he could run for mayor. Why? Because he has a lot of private GOP interests that don't want to be known donating to his campaign, because once Paul Vallis gets in there, he's going to carve up the city for these hedge fund, Wall Street, banking, real estate, charter school interests that want a piece of Chicago. Now,
yeah, and let's be fair though, Jerry. It's not just GOP funneling money in there. It's every corporate interest on all sides of the spectrum,
including corporate-run unions too. Yeah. Unions that lean more corporate-minded. You know, we've seen too many unions get corrupt where management sides with the corporation. So yeah, Vallis claims, well, I've got all these unions supporting me. Yeah, because you've got unions that are led by, they're not really leaning towards protecting their workers, they're leaning more towards management. So true, Ed. Yeah. And not, don't get us wrong, Chicago business interests have to be served, right? But that's all Rahm Emanuel focused on. That's all Lori Lightfoot focused on as Democrats. Now we got Paul Vallis coming in, who's Mr. Privatizer on steroids. We feel Brandon Johnson is quite logically going to have to serve and also work with business interests for Chicago, but he's also going to represent the average bread and butter working class Chicagoan. Unlike Paul Vallis, it's going to be all corporate, pro-business, privatization leaning. This is a tale of two cities, and a lot of commentators here in Chicago, news journalists have, I think it was WBEZ, framed it as this is like a tale of two cities. This is not even about Republicans, Democrats, whites, blacks. This is a class war right now in Chicago. Are we going to have a black man that's been supported by the Chicago Teachers Union that teaches and takes care of our kids and is woefully underfunded in the public school system that has been vilified? Or is it going to be a white guy with privatization interests that wants to carve up those schools so that corporations, Betsy DeVos is one of his biggest supporters, can make money off of giving people the choice to send their kids to a better school instead of saying, maybe we ought to make all the schools in the city on the south side, the west side, equal to the rich suburban schools on the north side. All these kids deserve an equal education. For people to claim they want this choice to get a voucher to go to a charter school means they think their kids are better than other people's kids. And when it comes down to it, everybody's kids should get the same quality of education, no matter how much it costs, whatever the tax bracket is. Make sure schools are equal. Then we wouldn't have to talk about charter schools and vouchers for choice. Nobody's thinking about the kids. What is Paul Vallis and the charter school privatizers thinking of? How they can make money off that system, offering the choice to parents to send their kids to a better school because Chicago public schools are woefully underfunded to begin with, while suburban schools, where a lot of Chicagoans moved to, like my parents when I was younger, in a different tax bracket, moved to so that someone like me could get a better education. It's just, when it comes down to it, it's all about the equity and the class warfare that we feel is not just going on here in Chicago, but nationally. And we're always all talking about this.
Yeah, you see that a lot here in New York too. And it got considerably worse over the last couple of years, particularly with the pandemic and all the craziness that went along with that. So, and of course we have a cop, that's our mayor, and who's been cutting social services around the city. But what about that police budget? Not touching that with a 10-foot pole. That's what he said.
Yeah.
So
how many billions does New York have right now?
Speaking of police,
10 something billion dollars for the police department. 10 billion, not million, billion.
Speaking of police, Paul Vallis's one of his biggest endorsements was from the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. That's led by a white supremacist MAGA turd. Okay. Brandon Johnson is supported by the Chicago Teachers Union. They basically found him and recruited him, and he was willing to run for the mayor's office, right? But what's interesting in a lot of the debates here, journalists have suggested that Brandon Johnson's they asked him, it's like, how are you going to separate yourself from the Chicago Teachers Union? Because we know how villainous they are. And they asked the same question to Paul Vallis. How are you going to separate yourself from not your private donors who've got all this money, but the Fraternal Order of Police? I thought the Fraternal Order of Police, which wants a repeal of the consent decree, which is supposed to hold the police accountable, right? That is an issue. But the larger issue is all of these shadow donors that are going to control Paul Vallis and expect something back for their donations while they lurk in the shadows. There were several articles here in Chicago about the fact that his super PACs, his donors, they didn't want to be known. Well, certainly it's since come out. Ken Griffin of Citadel, who bailed out of Chicago to run to Florida into a different tax bracket so that he could cozy up with DeSantis and possibly be Secretary of the Treasury if DeSantis runs for office. A lot of Wall Street hedge funds, real estate companies, those are Paul Vallis's donors. Don't think he's not going to be controlled by them, Chicago, those of you who are watching this program in Chicago. It's about the haves and the have-nots, really is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
it
really is.
It's crazy because we get these political ads that they run on television here, and every one of them is so chock full of lies. And all it is it's just, this guy is bad. He's going to make you cry. And everyone is going to suffer unless you vote for the other guy who's wonderful. And he's going to do everything for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Vallis too, wasn't he running on like a fear campaign too, like talking about the crime? And that was like his main thing.
The crime thing.
His prime platform is crime, which was what Bernie up. So let's not mistake what he's really dog whistling. Crime means black people in bad neighborhoods, just like Bernie Upton ran on Vote for Upton before it's too late, before the black guy gets in. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it couldn't be more transparent. And the fact that Vallis lives in Palos Heights and was questioned on the fact that his residency in Chicago only began when he wanted to run for mayor. He's never lived in the city. But, the property tax assessor gave him a pass on that and said, well, by the letter of the law, yeah, he basically used a loophole to run. He doesn't live here. Somebody published pictures from a real estate site of what this apartment looks like that he rented in Bridgeport.
It's a two-bedroom in Bridgeport, and I'm like, well, Bridgeport is Cop Town also. So
he doesn't live there with fiberboard walls, and it was just like, come on. That's a grift. Okay, the guy is grifting using loopholes so he can get in here, and he doesn't even know. He said, "Oh yeah, I rode the L downtown to see a Cubs game." The Cubs are not downtown.
No,
they're on the north side. You don't ride the L downtown to see the Cubs. So he doesn't really know what Chicago's all about. He doesn't live here. This is like Ed said, it's a corporate move on the city of Chicago. We've always joked that Lori Lightfoot's policies is neoliberal. She ran like the city like Rahm Emanuel 2.0, only 2 inches shorter. Vallis, if he wins, is going to be Rahm Emanuel 3.0, only 3 inches taller than Rahm, because Rahm was a short guy. And the whole, the reason I think this is important, we're focusing on this election locally too. Lightfoot was kind of a national darling in the Democratic Party, and all eyes were focused on Chicago. She bamboozled us all, running as a progressive reformer. She never was that. She lied. She never followed through on so many of her campaign platforms, but the national media loved her because she was a loyal foot soldier to the Democratic machine. She never expected that this was going to happen. But, Vallis and Johnson, I said this on the other night's Chicago Corner, Ed. I don't think either of them are really outstanding candidates, but I do think that Brandon will do better by the average Chicagoan. We're just left with, who I wouldn't even qualify it as the lesser of two evils, because I don't think Brandon Johnson is an evil, right? But when I've heard him in some of these recent debates, I'm like, he wasn't really on his game, nor was Paul Vallis, and that neither of them could really be on their game during a debate and impress me with the way they could quickly respond to questions was a little bit concerning and alarming. But if we're wrong about Brandon Johnson, I will own it. I voted for another guy in the primary named Jamal Green, and boy, was I wrong about him. Although Johnson was my second choice. We're going to have to give. And if you know what, Ed, if Vallis wins and we're wrong, I'll say we were wrong about that too. If he actually does stuff for these abandoned South and West Side neighborhoods we're concerned about.
Yeah, but something tells me we're not going to really see.
Yeah. But we'll see.
Yeah, I wouldn't be holding any breaths there. In fact, you might want to keep an oxygen tank handy just in case. So, but let's talk about Brandon Johnson for a second. So Palos Paul, as you call him, right? Is that the nickname, Palos Paul? I love that nickname.
Palos Paul, the privatizer.
Palos Paul, the privatizer, Triple P. He's coming to your town. He doesn't live there, but he's coming to your town. I think about
sell off anything it ain't nailed down.
You should come up with a little jaunty tune for him. But I imagine like the apartment that Bender was renting on Futurama. The closet. That's what I think. What Paul has in Chicago. Technically.
I'm going to send you in the private chat. I got to go to Twitter because I shared it from our Chicago Corner Twitter. Someone posted pictures of this apartment. So I will, I'll share it with you. I mean, we can keep talking until that link is sent to you, but I think that our audience will see this and say, no, this guy who's got all this money, who represents these private interests, he doesn't live in this apartment. It's an address. No. Plus, he never bought a city sticker for his car. That's the other thing somebody broke. It's like if you live in Chicago, you're supposed to get a city sticker for your car.
Yeah, you need a vehicle sticker for your car. When
he didn't do that either. So
he's misspelling Chicago. He's putting a K in there, and you're like, "What the hell are you doing, man? You want to be the fucking mayor? What the hell? You know nothing about
and
Chicago."
And he puts ketchup on his hot dogs. I mean,
dun dun dun.
I mean, even people in New York are aghast at that.
Yeah, rules for thee, not for me.
Well, all right. I'll put ketchup on a regular, dirty water dog, but not on a sausage dog. A sausage dog, you don't put that. You put some brown mustard on there. What the fuck's wrong with people? Right? Some spicy brown mustard. But let's talk about Johnson.
Ketchup, I mean, if you're more than 11 years old and you're putting ketchup on your hot dog, you got to do that in private.
Oh yeah, I don't do that in front of other people. I do it in shame.
You can't do that in public.
It's tasty, but it is shameful. You're right. But like I said, let's talk.
I found the link. I'm sending it to you in the private chat. I don't know if you could share it with your browser, but this is just hilarious. This is where Paul Vallis lives as a Chicagoan. It's just hilarious. But people gave him this pass. Meanwhile, they're screaming about the fact that Brandon Johnson, I guess he was late on his water bill, or he had like $1,000 in water bills. And this is what they trotted out at the last minute to get people angry at him. Well, Brandon Johnson makes over $100,000 a year and he can't pay his water. He wouldn't pay his water bill. It was late. Well, you know what? Utility bills here in Chicago are obscene to begin with. So that doesn't bother me as much. But here's an interesting thing, Warren. When Harold Washington ran with Bernie Epton, what did they trot out? The fact that Harold Washington hadn't paid some taxes. And the black guy didn't pay his taxes. The black guy didn't pay his water bill this time around. It's just like, it's like poetry. It rhymes, like George Lucas says, the way that they are figuring out what can we grab at the last minute to smear Johnson, before the polls close tomorrow night. But yeah, did you see this Twitter? Don't tell me that Paul Vallis lives in this apartment.
Okay.
All right, this is hilarious.
This is I don't know, man. This looks like a palace compared to my place.
I think it was.
Love thinking about Paul Vallis alone in his Home Depot cabinet, bifold door closet apartment that he definitely really lives in. And some of the comments on Twitter are hilarious. One person says, I hope his wife gets to leave him after he loses the election. Because here's the other thing. Paul Vallis's wife is taking care of her sick mother in Palos Heights while Vallis is trotting around the city running for mayor, pretending that this is where he lives so he could qualify with the 1-year residency requirement to run for the mayor's office.
Yeah, what's shocking is that it feels like none of the mainstream media in our city is doing any kind of major investigations into Paul Vallis. They don't follow him to see if he actually goes home to his Bridgeport apartment. They don't check to see who all of his weird donors are and where his money's coming from, other than like just a superficial kind of thing. And we have to leave it up to guys on Twitter who, fortunately, we're able to. I have a huge list of people I've been cultivating for a decade on Twitter, and a lot of them are in Chicago. And he's like, hey, look at what I found. And I'm like looking at these things. I'm like, why is nobody on Chicago News talking about this stuff? Jerry finds it. I find it. When we have great opportunities, we bring it onto the show and talk about it, because it's like, this is like really timely stuff that somebody should have been talking about during this campaign. And why are we just getting to it now?
There's a guy on Twitter named Omega Man, and I've actually reached out to him, Ed, and said, we'd love to have you on the show because we're sharing a lot of the stuff that he's dug deep for. He found out that Paul Vallis was on the board of a charter military school in Arkansas, and none of that history regarding his role as being on the board of this charter school was in any of his financial disclosures before he ran for mayor. You're supposed to list where you're working, where you're making money from. Oddly enough, too, that Arkansas Charter School is connected with a charter school operation here in Chicago. So don't tell me that once this guy gets in, it's not going to be charter school privatization on steroids. Now, why didn't the mainstream media here in Chicago cover that? You tell me. Why did this guy, Omega Man, on Twitter, and with the receipts, long list of receipts that he was able to provide as far as all of the evidence regarding the fact that, no, it's not on his campaign disclosures. Why isn't it? Why are they giving him a pass on he lives in Bridgeport just to qualify running for mayor when he's never really lived in Chicago, I think, since when he was CEO of Chicago Public Schools back in the, when was that, Ed? 2008, I think?
2008, 2009.
Yeah. Someone else said in this thread on his apartment, seeing those pictures, they can imagine him eating baked beans straight out of the can, sitting on his mattress on the floor.
With a little harmonica. It's got soot on his face, a little stick with a rag on the end of it, little hobo.
Hey, baked beans are good eating though, Uncle Warren.
Well, sometimes they're good going down, but there's a reckoning later.
The musical fruit, I know.
Yeah, that's that's more like a marching band. Yes, exactly.
I hear they're good for your heart.
Well, what about Brandon Johnson though? Like, okay, so Lori Lightfoot. Let's rewind. Lori Lightfoot comes off as this like kind of a populist when she was running, and then when
she just totally Warren, she was the lesbian woman of color. It was identity politics that put her across the finish line. And oddly enough, I don't know that she served so many of the the black people that she ran on. As a woman, I mean, she tried to cover up the police raid of an innocent woman's home, Anjanette Young. She wasn't much for women's rights. As for the gay LGBTQ community, you know, she was always out there waving the flag for that to her advantage. But she served the elites, the business people, while using the shield of identity politics to protect herself. At one point, she felt that the media was treating her so unfairly, she was only going to do interviews with black journalists.
Yeah,
because she's
I was about to ask
so
you about that.
unfairly
Yeah.
as a black mayor. It's like, please, you just don't like people being critical of the fact you've broken a lot of the promises that you made. And you know, she was mayor. She took residency of the 5th floor right before the pandemic started, so there was certainly a lot going against her then. But it was through that and after that that she really showed her true colors. Raising the bridges downtown in Chicago to protect downtown from angry mobs after the George Floyd verdict, right? It was like this put up the drawbridges at the moats, but she didn't reform anything. To your question, the stuff that she bamboozled people on. And when she was called out for not following through on her campaign promises, Thin Skin Lori came out, and we've seen, you know, how she would bark at the press and react and bristling that anybody would have the nerve to call it a question.
Yeah. She made a lot of enemies really quick, and well, the people responded too. She didn't even make it to the runoff. So I think it came in third, right, behind Johnson and Vallis.
Yeah. No. Did she, or was it
just behind Chuy Garcia?
She thought
she was fourth. She was fourth.
She thought Chuy was her big threat. He's the guy that she focused on in her campaign, and it turned out because you know he was another high-powered. Now remember, Chuy, he had just won congressional re-election, so quite natural he was going to abdicate his position in Congress to be mayor of the city of Chicago. Either way, his nest was feathered. But I will give him credit for coming out and endorsing Johnson after he lost. But Lightfoot focused her aim on Garcia, not realizing, we think that Garcia is an opportunist too, just dropping into Chicago in the last minute. When he was asked by the teachers union early on as a progressive, will you stand up for the progressive cause in Chicago? And he said, well, can you guys wait for me? And no, we need to do a ground game now. But he came out at the last, and I think a lot of people saw through that. Look, Garcia's not a bad guy, but I think he's one of those Democrats who, you know, has kind of entered the Democratic Party thinking he's going to change it. And it's like the Democratic Party changes you.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah. And he should stay in Washington and get the money from Congress that Chicago and the state of Illinois needs. That's where we need him. He didn't need to jump out and run for mayor when the teachers union had, you know, aligned itself with Johnson, who said, yeah, I'll represent the progressive platform here in Chicago. Janice Anderson in the chat there. Good to see you, Janice. I don't know if you're new on the scene. If you are, please like, share, and subscribe. You know the thing. She says we should stop calling them elite. They aren't elite compared to people of average means. They should be called predator class or hoarders. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
Chicago's not a stranger to. Chicago's parasite class. I mean, Chicago's definitely not a stranger to corruption and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, and from what you said about Vallis, you know, he's going to be like greasing the palms of the people that's taking care of him for sure. But what about Johnson? What do you if Johnson is elected? What kind of prediction you think you could make of what kind of mayor he would be?
You want to go first, Ed? I mean, I have an opinion on it, but
okay. He's definitely a community organizer kind of guy, and it sounds like he's actually going to listen to people. You know, that's key. In a lot of ways, there are parallels to Harold Washington from our perspective, because it looks like he's actually going to try and get equity for the different areas in different neighborhoods and different wards. There's like 50 wards in Chicago, and a lot of times the money usually only goes to the wealthy wards on the north side or the downtown ones, and we see that here. You know, I'd see it just commuting to work every day from the north side to the south to Well, it's not the near South Side. It's near where Sox Park is. And I see it's like potholes, road conditions, everything's worse on the south and west sides, and it shouldn't be that way. And clearly, there's a disconnect also as far as school funding goes. And I'm fairly certain that Johnson, since he has a good connection with the teachers union, that he's going to be for equity in public schools. And that's a thing that I think is good because when you're mayor, you're more or less in charge of the Chicago public schools system. And so with Johnson, it wouldn't be an adversarial situation. He would work with the schools to make sure that they're properly funded and supported, as opposed to Vallis.
He was a teacher too, which is part of that, because Johnson did serve and work as a teacher.
Yeah, and as opposed to Vallis, who basically will privatize anything that's not nailed down, especially schools, because he has a history. He's got a track record of this. He destroyed the New Orleans school system in Louisiana. I'm sure he's done damage in Philadelphia. He did damage in Chicago. So it's not like we're saying these things just to be mean or to because like we're taking one side over the other. It's because they're true. Yeah. Johnson is observably a better candidate than Vallis.
He's more tuned in with the average Chicagoan's needs, Warren, we feel. Plus, okay, so they say he doesn't have any political experience. He's a Cook County commissioner. Now, I don't know how much responsibility with legislating comes with that, but don't say he doesn't have experience. He understands too, when we talk about the outrageous levels of crime in the city of Chicago, he proposes what we call treatment, not trauma. What does that mean? It means not defunding the police, as everybody, points him as having supported. And he was on the record as saying defund the police. But, we've always thought defund the police is a stupid phrase. It should be reallocate resources, because that's what it really means. It doesn't mean shut down the police and have anarchy, right? It means reallocate resources, because truth be told, if spending more money on police was the key to like making Chicago streets safer, we'd already be the safest city in the world. Okay. Lori Lightfoot used 70% of COVID funds in 2021 to pay for police overtime. We're constantly shoveling money into the police budget, the police who also endorsed Paul Vallis, right? Everybody thinks Paul Vallis is going to magically wave a wand. It's going to be he's going to be the law and order mayor, putting more money to the police. The police deal with crimes after they happen. The police are not stationed in front of everybody's door to stop a crime from happening. They are reactionary. Johnson's policies are more aligned with, why don't we start reallocating resources and putting it into reopening our mental health clinics, figuring out how we can drive more infrastructure and money to the neighborhoods on the south and west sides to reopen some schools, perhaps provide more opportunities and jobs to our youth. Because people who, unfortunately, not always, okay, I don't want to sound like a bleeding heart liberal here. A lot of people, though, that end up, getting mixed up with crime are people who are desperate, who don't have any other solutions. You're going to grow up on the south and west side neighborhoods where there aren't a lot of employment opportunities, or schools are closed, or you might sadly, and this is across all races, okay? There are white kids who've got shitty white parents. There are black kids who have shitty white parents. What people fail to realize is that a lot of kids come from homes with parents that were suffering from trauma themselves, and it's a cycle that continues. How do you break that cycle? You got to figure out how to treat and be responsive to the youth in those neighborhoods, whether it's opportunities, whether it's mental health support, whether it's counseling, and that costs money. But all the money is being poured into the police department, which is a reactionary, we're going to punish people and put them in prison. Johnson, to your point or your question, leans more towards how do we figure out how to actually attack crime at its root sources of poverty and desperation, as opposed to thinking shoveling more money to the police department is going to suddenly magically make crime go away. It's not. So we feel that Johnson leans more towards that model of attacking the root sources of crime. And, he's also, to his credit, said he wants to, train more police detectives to solve crimes Vallis says he's going to hire more cops. Well, it's going to take, 6 months to a year for those new cops to be on the streets. And I think is what they were analyzing. It's not like Paul Vallis is going to suddenly, throw more money at the police department, more cops are going to be on the streets and crime's going to go down. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's the you know the nature of Chicago politics there, and what can and can't be done. I mean, what's the likelihood of if Johnson elected that he's actually going to be able to spread these funds out to these other agencies, like for mental health services and for non-police personnel that would do these jobs that the cops are taking on right now? I mean, how likely is that you think would happen?
There's a great progressive wave here in Chicago. Now the progressive caucus in city council is not that huge, but it's grown, and a lot of incumbents have been put out, and with more progressive minded aldermen. So I think that it's a good question, Warren. But I think city council will align themselves with either candidate and their platform if they get in, because older people want to make sure that they're cooperating with the mayor to get shit done for their neighborhoods. It's funny, all the older people now who came out in criticism of Lori Lightfoot, they voted with her on a lot of stuff while she was mayor. So I don't think it's insurmountable for Johnson to put forth a lot of these platform planks that he set forth, any less than I don't think they will fight Paul Vallis, right, if he gets in, with the support of big business and real estate and everything else. What do you think, Ed? I mean, it's
it's going to depend on the entire makeup of city council. When all is said and done, when the 14 runoffs are done, we figure out who actually has a voting majority for the types of changes or progress that they want to make in the city.
Sorry.
And if we do manage to tilt it more left or progressive in the aldermanic count, then Brandon Johnson is going to have a lot better time trying to make his campaign promises happen, or at least his goals. On the other hand, I think it's going to be council wars in there for remaining alder people who manage to survive their re-elections and lean toward Vallis, even if Vallis gets in, because it looks like we're going to be leaning toward a progressive city council. And then what'll happen is, if Vallis does try to privatize everything that isn't nailed down, there are going to be people in city council trying to block it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And when Ed refers to council wars, this is what happened when Harold Washington became mayor, the city's first black mayor. All the white blocks of city council just fought him on everything and just tied everything up, just because they could not deal with the fact that there was a black guy running the city. Now, we would imagine that some things have changed, right? It's not all racially driven right now, but it is driven. But I think Ed's right. There will be council wars. I don't know that they will reach the level of what Harold Washington dealt with, though, Ed. I mean,
no, it can't anymore because the old Chicago machine doesn't have as much power as it used to, but they do still have some influence. We did see that former alderman Dick Mell, who was involved around Harold Washington's time, is still got his fingers in the machine that's left, and he's making influence where he can, and he's definitely a Vallis guy.
And there's a documentary I cannot recommend highly enough. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's streaming yet. We saw it in theaters here in Chicago. It was called Punch 9 for Harold Washington. It was about the Washington years, the election leading up to that. And I saw it with Ed. We talked about it on our show, had the director on, and we looked at each other and we're like, nothing's changed. The faces have changed, but the same kind of bullshit continues. And I mean, I think that documentary, it's a time capsule to another era, but a lot of the issues that it revealed with behind the scenes politics and the power struggles, it's still very much reflected, I think, in today's Chicago political scene.
And Harold was he was the 80s, right, when he was elected? Is that right?
1985, I believe it was. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was
He
still
served one term. Sadly, he had a heart attack. The guy, I mean, he was such this jovial, charismatic character, but he didn't take care of himself. A lot of people think he may have been poisoned. The filmmaker for Punch Night for Harold Washington said he spoke to a lot of Washington's inner circle. They don't think that there's any conspiracy with the fact that when he was ready to, he won his second term, I think, didn't he, Ed? He did win his second term, but then he died during this right at the beginning of his second term, which led to a whole other council war situation with a power struggle for who was really the vice. There was a guy named Tim Evans who was the vice mayor, and all the white aldermen managed to like appoint someone else, basically circumvent the system that was in place to take power away from another black guy. I mean, it was just shameful.
Yeah, and that was even the 80s, still the mid 80s, particularly like in the big cities like New York and Philadelphia and Chicago, still very racially charged at those times too. So I mean, yeah, we have come a long way, but now it's other things that's replaced. I mean, I'm not saying racism went away by any stretch, but it did kind of take a little back burner to cronyism, and now with the shit libs. The neocons, if you will, that have surfaced in these cities now, particularly in the last few years, we've really seen what they really showed themselves for who they are. When they show themselves, believe them when they show you who they are. Ed,
neoliberals, Warren, are neoliberals. While they claim they're Democrats, they're basically they're Republican light. Neoliberal.
That's why I called them neocons. That's why I was saying neocons. I was going to say neoliberals, but it's like they're all the same stripe now. They're all the same stripe.
Yeah, neocons are a little bit more violent and extreme. But the thing is, this is how I kind of separate them. Let's just go with Republicans and Democrats. A Republican, if you run into a Republican in an alley and they don't like you, they will pour gasoline on you and set you on fire. If you run into a Democrat in an alley that doesn't like you, they'll just beat you up and leave you in a pulp. One is worse than the other, but they're both really bad things. Right. Republicans will shoot you in the face. Democrats will stab you in the back. Again, they're both really, really bad, but one is less worse than the other. And I think that would apply to the whole, if you're going to put the label of neocons on Republicans and neoliberals on Democrats, they're all taking money from the same donors, pretending that they're fighting each other. They're not. They're pitting us against each other to divide us, while those at the top, the predator class, as I forgot who in your chat shared this, but they were absolutely correct, constantly like feed off of that so they can retain their power. Neolibcons. I like that, Tim.
I'm just seeing this.
I just call them the duopoly.
Yeah.
Because it's basically, it's the same dirty bird with two wings. It's the same piece of garbage wrapped in two different color wrappers.
Yeah, when we vote, we're constantly faced with eating shit or a shit sandwich. They're both really, really bad. But which are you going to go with? The one that's got a little bread to diminish the horrible taste? You're just going to eat the shit outright. And I think we should start calling them Hydra. Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra. The lesser of two evils. Now, Ed, I'm going to bring this up. This thing that you shared here in the thing. So, if you want to explain what this is.
Sure. In Chicago, I think this person actually does national stuff too. There's a voter guide called Girl I Guess. And people will go to it to try and figure out, well, who last minute, who should I be voting for in whatever election happens to be happening? Well, I'm I'm starting to not like some of the choices this Girl I Guess is doing. So last minute myself, I should have done this last week, but as long as, there's election day is tomorrow. If you're from Chicago, it's still a good guide. I called it, man, I suppose.
Are you mansplaining Ed, because the other guide was called Girl, I Guess. You know you're going to get accused of mansplaining, even though this was all in really.
Yeah, but I don't care.
Good, you shouldn't.
I mean, the title is parody, but the content is serious.
It's important, very, very serious.
Although there is some stuff in there that's kind of funny. So, man, I suppose, or in Spanish, hombre, supongo.
For everybody that thinks Paul Vallis, do you know there are voters in Chicago? They think Paul Vallis is Greek, but they think Vallis means he's Hispanic, which is why those that voted for Chewy, who should vote for Johnson, are leaning towards Vallis because they think there's some ethnocentric reason. Everybody's screaming from the rooftops, no. He's not Spanish. If you voted for Garcia, Vallis is not the alternate because you think he's of Hispanic descent.
And when I had learned this, Jerry and Warren, I was terrified that we're going to end up with Vallis because our Hispanic community thinks he's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, because Vallas in Spanish means let's go. No, dude, he's Greek,
and I'm Greek.
No offense to Greeks.
Well, you know the funny thing too, Ed. I've been called as I've been called out by some Greeks as betraying my heritage, and I'm like, I don't give a shit that this guy's Greek. I don't care if he's Asian, black. His history tells me who he is, and I'm not going to vote for him because we share the same heritage. And he went to talk to the City Club, how his grandparents came over here, to pursue the American dream. All the dog whistle bullshit buzzwords to make it seem like, oh, he's going to take care of the average person. He's not. His history shows this, regardless of his heritage.
Ed's put in the chat the link to that the Man I Suppose voter guide. Very good, Ed. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I like that when I saw you share it on Twitter.
Yeah, I just wish I had gotten ahead of the thing, but hopefully it'll spread a little bit on Twitter and people will share it on social media. At least while we still have like a day of election days tomorrow, so people may still be swayed by this. All 5 or 6 of them that actually see my posts, if they're not being suppressed.
We're a little channel with a small following on Twitter, but we're trying to change that.
We're trying. Follow RDD Pizza. Follow at Chicago Corner TV. Follow Nightstar Pro.
Yes. Miguel's bringing a correction here. He says Vallas actually means fences in Spanish. Vaya is go.
So that's even worse.
Actually, vamonos. I think vamonos is let's go.
Vamonos, let's go. Yeah.
Vamonos, muchachos. I remember that.
Thank you, Miguel.
I just thought of
as a kid.
It should be
okay. You don't have to give us the puzzle anymore.
It should be Vallis the Vlaka, and go look up what Vlaka means in Greek.
Valass, emphasis on ass. All right, so
and I want just one more note is that we have these. They put these campaign signs all over the city. Vallis clearly has the bigger budget for that, and he's like putting 12 in a row, like inches from each other in places. A lot of them on the south side, and people obviously are vandalizing the hell out of them. I wish I had easy access to photos, but most of them are like, hell no, hell to the no is what I saw. I'm like, because we have some really talented graffiti artists here in Chicago, but sometimes they just need to go with the rage.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's we've got other topics to talk about, but I want to wrap up this the election stuff with predictions from you guys. Who do you think it's neck and neck, right? So who do you
I don't even want to call it, Warren. I think it's going to be razor thin. I'm prepared. I'm not having any expectations because I don't want to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if Johnson wins, I'll be happily surprised. But if he loses, I won't be disappointed. That's how you basically go into things. Don't have any expectations. So hopefully, if the good thing does happen, it'll be a nice surprise for you. You won't be simmering in despair and depression that your expectations are so high to be dashed. It's close, Ed.
Yeah, I'm optimistic for Brandon Johnson, but I'm not really sure if he's going to be able to get over the hurdle there. I know he's got a pretty good ground game. He's got a huge amount of support of the African American community, and again, I'm hoping that the Hispanic community is going to realize that Vallis is not on their side. But polls, take what you will of polls, have been showing it kind of split in the Hispanic communities.
And by the way, a friend of our show, Arturo Medina, was a good friend of mine. I was texting him today, and he said he asked me if I had voted yet. I usually wait till election day, so I'm going to go tomorrow.
Yeah.
But he said there were lines at his polling place, Ed. So that's a good sign. People, if there are lines at polling places, it means maybe we'll have a better voter turnout this time around. We've seen more voter engagement during this election than previous ones.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, my perspective is that Vallis has been running as mayor of the suburbs for Chicago. And so you got all these people out in the suburbs who are probably all like, oh, yeah, well, it's just no brainer that we go with Vallis. But then the people in the city, I don't think there's as many people that like-minded in the city that are going to finally go with Vallis. So, again, I'm leaning toward Brandon Johnson, but I won't be surprised if he, if it's a tie or really close.
Well, I hope for both of your sakes, since you live there, that you get the right one in, and hopefully whoever it is will do a much better job than what Lori Lightfoot's been doing for the last 4 years. So it just seems like lost time that you're trying to reclaim, and you don't want to waste it again with somebody who's just going to lie to you right off the bat, tell you what you want to hear, and then get in and then just do the same old,
I think that's what Paul Vallis is. I don't think that's what Brandon Johnson is, even though I don't think he's the ideal candidate. I don't think he's telling people what they want to hear, aside from having to deflect from his whole defund the police statement, which in a debate recently, the reporter asked him, did you say it, yes or no? Well, what I meant, she just give a yes or no answer. And his deflections, I'm like, say you said it, say yeah, but let's qualify what I meant. And the fact that he wasn't willing, and that would have ingratiated himself with people. That's one of the little things that bugged me about.
That was the one thing I was hoping. I was hoping Brandon would be a little better in the debates and campaigning as far as that goes. I mean, it's like his campaign crew seems to be really good, but whoever is coaching him on debating must have been weighing their options as to what should he be saying and who is he trying to reach the most to get their votes.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me that the campaign strategy for him was to get as many left and center left Democrats that he could to flip away from Vallis. And I don't know how successful he was. We'll see.
And his defund the police statement years ago after George Floyd, and look, that was said out of a lot of emotion. It was a really tense time. It was we saw police choking out a black man on the street. So emotions were high. So I don't blame anybody for saying defund the police at that time, when we've seen the rampant corruption and abuse of police. And I'm not anti-cop. I think it's a high calling to serve the public. But unfortunately, today's law enforcement, it's instilled in them that their lives are more important than everybody else, and they can get away with whatever they want with impunity and act like Judge Dredd on the streets. And that's a problem. We want to see law enforcement living up to the standard by which we were taught growing up. Law enforcement is a privilege and it's a sacred duty. Not, I got a badge and a gun and I can do whatever the fuck I want. And this black guy, on camera, I'm just going to choke him out on the street or do whatever I want to control a perp, whatever, even those that are unarmed and clearly of no danger to a police officer, right? Cops, I feared for my life. That's why I had to shoot him. There's this great meme on social media, Warren. It shows a firefighter and it shows a cop. And it says both of these public servants understood the risks associated with their jobs. Only one claims that they fear for their lives. Can you imagine a firefighter? Cops and firefighters, they all know the risks of their job. Firefighters know the risks. They don't avoid burning buildings saying, I'm sorry, I feared for my life.
Yeah.
To cops who constantly lean on, I feared for my life, then get out of law enforcement. I hear Streets and Sand is hiring. Okay. But this has a lot to do with unions and the fact that I don't think that I remember reading an article many years ago about a candidate for a police department in some city who said his IQ test was too high. They didn't want him because his IQ was too high. Why do you think that is? Because they want people who just don't follow and obey orders, are easy to indoctrinate, not people with critical thinking skills who in a moment might realize maybe I ought to de-escalate the situation instead of give in to my adrenaline and chase a perp and shoot him in the back when they're no threat to me. My life is not actually in danger, and I might misfire and shoot a bystander, who's around the guy who's fleeing. Or in a cop car, we've seen issues where, cops take off on these high-speed chases and kill innocent civilians who aren't even associated with it. That's a whole other thing, with these high-speed chases. Just shut down exits or put barriers across the highway. Why do you let these perps flee for so long to the point where it's a danger to everybody on the expressway? And that's a whole other, me, I get off on a tangent like 4 hours.
Well, I can bring us back onto the tracks if you want.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, that whole defund thing, it's like that. It's like they're knee jerking over defund the police, but we can't be reactionary when they say things like defund schools or defund health clinics or defund any other city service, right? It's all about the budget, right? In local politics and local communities and governments, because they have to worry about the revenue stream and what they're spending it on, which is why we always call for our federal representatives to keep sending money to our states and cities, because they don't have to worry about that, right? Taxes don't pay for federal spending. They just choose to do the spending. The money's created. They funnel it down to the states and local governments. Mm-hmm. So states and local governments are currency users, so they don't have that luxury. They have a budget they have to worry about. And so everybody's of the mindset of, well, I don't want my money paying for this. I don't want my money paying for that. And okay, on the local level, it makes sense. But then what you should be fighting for is for your federal representatives to give us all the money they can. And they choose not to. So that's why we don't have a national healthcare system. That's why they decided to cut off SNAP food benefits for people when they didn't have to. That's why they just cut off Medicaid for millions of people. I think I was one of them. And these are all choices that they're making that they don't have to make. And it's all in service of the mighty dollar that they're getting that they don't want to share with us.
Well said. I to kind of put a button on it, I guess. I don't know about defund the police. I think we should define the police, right? Define what they are supposed to be, right?
It's a great phrase, Warren.
Get them back to protecting and serving us instead of property and the elites like they've been doing for so long.
Working together with the neighborhoods and not looking at every citizen on the street as a potential threat. Well, more often, black people is the potential threat. Because as I've told this story on our show many times, I got pulled over by a cop in my neighborhood because my registration on my plate had expired. I didn't know that because the state doesn't send notices out anymore to remind you, right? I didn't fear for my life. I was like, the cop pulled me. He was very polite. But not during one moment of that encounter, Warren, was I worried that this guy was going to freak out and have his gun out, as so many innocent black motorists do in other sides of the city who are of no threat, or nationwide we've heard these stories. Motorists getting pulled over, and you've got some roided cop escalating the situation and shooting them when they were never a threat. They were never a violent offender. And that is what we need to define in the police department also, as far as the culture that looks at certain people of certain colors as being more of a threat than other colors, when other colors can be just as much of a threat. Or how about we just make it more equitable across the board.
Yeah.
But that's unfortunately related to racism that I guess still to this day in 2023 shocks me that we're still talking about it. But I guess Trump was able to help, put a face on it's okay to be racist and be MAGA and let the ugly side of prejudice and racism show its face. I am no fan of the Democrats, but the way that the Democrats have been, trying to malign Trump and derail another election that he might run in, Trump's not an ideal candidate for the reasons that he basically showed the ugliness of the Oval Office. But let's not, let our Trump derangement syndrome cancel out the fact that the Democrats in this duopoly, as Ed describes it, are just as bad. They just pretend they're not.
Yeah. They just put a better face on it. They really do.
I think Democrats are also really pissed off that Trump basically revealed the ugliness of the Oval Office that they were always able to put a happy face on with Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, or now the way that they've reformed George Bush, the war criminal. Oh, but he paints. Then he goes on Ellen DeGeneres' show, and isn't he just a funny, goofy guy? No, he's a fucking war criminal. And so is Obama.
He gets hugs from Michelle Obama, though, and he gives her candy. Like Jesus. Grandpa. A grandpa who murders millions of people.
Talk about another sellout, the Obamas.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if you're going to indict Trump, you get the rest of them too. Get Biden too. He's done some heinous shit in the past too, and he's doing heinous shit now. Obama, Clinton, get them all.
They're indicting Trump because he paid off a porn star to shut up. That he screwed around with her right after his young third wife had their first child. Okay, that's what they're going after Trump for, because he lied.
They're literally doing an Al Capone.
Yeah, they're doing Al Capone. War crimes. What about all these other guys? We know that Bush and Cheney lied about the reasons that took us into Iraq and murdered millions of Iraqi civilians.
They can't go after Trump for any of the stuff that they're also doing, Jerry.
Right.
Because then they'd have to arrest themselves as well.
Yeah, they'd be exposing themselves. Well, it's the same thing that happened with Clinton. I mean, the dress with the semen stain on it. The whole thing with that. That was just the same thing. That it was just only it was reversed. It was the Republicans going after Clinton. They couldn't get anything else on him, so they tried that, and then they got bubkas. Exactly.
Yeah, and then blue dresses were really popular that year.
And who knew that Clinton, President Bubba, was basically going to, continue the policies of Ronald Reagan by reaching across the aisle with Newt Gingrich. What was it? They got rid of Glass-Steagall that was supposed to protect our banking systems. And, Clinton just showed himself as much of a traitor because the Democrats decided we can't get all the money from the working class. We can't rely on that anymore. Let's do what the Republicans are doing, and let's court their donors too, and basically be Republican light, pro business light. Even though, we've all been betrayed by the Democratic Party.
Yeah, definitely, and it was, Clinton was able to do things for the Republicans that Bush Sr. couldn't do. So that's what I got that from Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore said, he was able to push through things that Papa Bush was not able to do. And here we are, just been in this neoliberal nightmare for the past at least 30 years, if not longer. So, it's a good thing that Chicago Corner exists, right? Because if it didn't exist, we'd have to invent one. Right, as they say. So. Well, I'm the king of segues. You guys and Miss Kira too, who is currently on maternity leave. Sweet mama lady. I love Kira to death.
She is the best, man. And she still helps us behind the scenes on the show. So even though she's not on the air, she's been very dedicated to helping us book guests. Helping us with the infrastructure of running the show.
Although occasionally we do coax her back onto the live stream. We had her on last Tuesday, and she was on for the primary broadcast that we did. See if we can get her to come on tomorrow. I don't know. She might be busy.
Well, let's talk. let's talk about Chicago Corner. So like I said, it's Kira and you guys, and there's big news, right? So big changes at Chicago Corner going on. I don't have the breaking news thing like you got. I have like, wait a minute, what do I have over here? I have I've got oh well, this is the only thing Chicago related I have, so I could just
Damn!
so breaking news, breaking plates,
Good
breaking
times.
dishes, breaking news, Chicago Corner. What is the scoop, guys? Let's this is the big reveal. What is going on over there with you guys?
I haven't heard of other media organizations in Chicago. I think there is one that's a worker-owned co-op, and I think it might be an alliance of journalists, but Chicago Corner has now detached from Hardlands Media, where it originally resided, and has become a worker-owned co-op with the founding members being myself, Ed, and Kira. A worker-owned co-op means that we all have equal votes in what goes on. We're able to explore, I guess, fundraising opportunities, whether it's small business loans, since we are now an LLC, grants for media organizations, basically look for the infrastructure we need to support ourselves as a 2-night-a-week broadcast here in Chicago that's focused mostly on Chicago news, which was, originally the mission statement. So you'd have to basically know the history of Chicago Corner. When before Hardlands Media existed, they had created a show called Chicago Corner, talking about local news, which was great. They had a radio show, Kit and Daniel. I think it was Kit and Daniel and Laney and somebody else that did that radio show.
I think Paul
DuPont, I believe is his name. And they spun it off into a YouTube channel where they were doing local news. But, local news it's hyper local news is a little bit limiting as far as like gaining an audience if you don't have marketing resources or advertising resources or a way to attract traffic to your channel. So if I'm remembering correctly, and Ed, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because Ed was with Hardlands before I was. Hardlands Media kind of evolved from Chicago Corner. So they covered national stories, which drew a national audience, which helped that channel grow. Chicago Corner was still in existence, and they had a host named Ali Alexandra, who was basically coming on. They didn't want to shut down Chicago Corner because
they had a couple people hosting different shows on the channel. Jose was on there.
Yeah. I knew Ali because I took over for Ali at that time. And Ed, what was the history before Ali and
I don't have the complete history in my brain, but to my knowledge, I think Laney originally did a civically minded show on there.
Kid hosted some stuff there too.
Yeah. Miguel says Jerome was there too. Did Jerome? Does that ring a bell?
Oh right, Jerome was a production guy before Phase. So, so yeah, they had a number of people that were part of one or the other channel, and I think they came onto my radar as Hardlands Media when I first discovered them.
Mine too. I discovered them because I was a big Jimmy Dore fan, and I saw Kit and Daniel do an interview with Jimmy, which turned me on to Hardlands Media. And I was like, this is great. There's a group in Chicago, an indie media group, doing stuff like we see on the West Coast and the East Coast with progressive politics. So I reached out to them and volunteered. I said, look, how can I love what you guys are doing. How can I be a part of it? Because I'm a news gadfly. I'm a news junkie, talk radio junkie, political junkie, even though I work primarily as a media producer, director, and editor. So, Kit and Daniel said, great, love to have you join us. And I always assumed that I would just be providing some production support for Chicago Corner, because at that time they had Chicago Corner and it needed support, and Ali was hosting. So I proposed some things to Ali. I said, let's do a branding, came up with the street sign logo, went out with another volunteer videographer and shot a lot of local footage to basically create the nice opening montage we have to the theme music by a composer named Context. That theme's called Buddha. Everybody loves the Chicago Corner theme. It's not ours, but it's Creative Commons public domain.
It is really good. It is really good.
It was just fun to put together. Now, Allie decided to step away because she saw an opportunity at another YouTube channel. At which point, Daniel asked me, would you like to step up as the host of Chicago Corner, since I was doing all kinds of stuff to help behind the scenes? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. I mean, I thought, yeah, secretly I had an interest in being on the air, but maybe as a co-host to Allie and contributing now and then. Now here's the opportunity to be the host. But I don't like, even though I'm very long-winded, I don't like doing a monologue show. I'd rather have a conversational format as we have here. And Kid had co-hosted some stuff. Lainey had come on, and I met Ed at one of the Hardlands media meetings, and Ed was working as helping them as a moderator. Ed, and what were you doing at the time?
I started as a live chat moderator, and then when they had one of their channel strike episodes, I had volunteered at the time to help them redo their website. So that's I think that's how I got a little more involved with them in general, and at a certain point, I don't think I was ever co-hosting with Allie, but I was helping her out on StreamYard, and I was helping her with the live chat. And then when Jerry came on board, he eventually coaxed me onto the cam.
I'm like, what is this guy doing behind the scenes? He's got so much you've got a great presence. You're very insightful. And as we were having worker meetings, Ed would talk, and I'm like, he needs to be on the air. He's underused. And that's and I didn't want to be on by myself. So I did coax Ed out, and I think it's great, because I think, Ed, you've gotten more comfortable with it. You've kind of come into your own and realized this is not that hard if you had reservations before. And I love co-hosting with Ed. So, and then it brought the opportunity to have Kira come on, because Kira was doing stuff at Hardlands Media National. She wanted to cover more activist-driven stuff here in Chicago. So when I was told Kira would like to be part of Chicago Corner, I'm like, that's great. And it kind of helped alleviate some of my responsibilities, because, as you know, Warren, this is a job, even when it's not monetized well. I mean, we do 2 shows a week. Kira started headlining Tuesdays with Ed, and I would join them when I could, and I would host the Friday show. But what is a work week now? 48-hour work week is what we have. Generally, it's like that's the American. Yeah, we have
allegedly, yes.
Allegedly. So, we're putting 10 hours, at least 10 hours a week into 2 broadcasts total.
Yeah, it's there's quite a bit of prep ahead of time just to get the stories and to figure out what you're going to do and what you're going to talk about. I mean, even before you get on even when I have, during the week, I'm just gathering up stories as I see them and throwing them into our shared Slack community just so we can, be aware of the stories that are going on. Half the time I'll actually be able to read the story ahead of time. Other times I'll get into the first couple paragraphs and go, okay, we'll go down the rest of it as we're doing the show, because it's nice to do a live reaction to some of the content that we're reading sometimes. But
the show's
there's a lot. It's a lot of prep, and I know obviously Warren knows that. He's pressing 700 buttons right now. You can't even see him moving his arms.
Well, the reason I bring this point up is that Ed has a day job. I have a day job. I got primarily involved during the pandemic when everybody was working from home, so it was easy to come on, do a live stream from home. Ed too. But, we figured we were probably putting about 10 hours. I know I was putting in 10 hours a week myself, producing 2 shows a week. And as we came out of the pandemic, there were more expectations put on us at Chicago Corner to go out in the field, especially with the mayor's race, and do stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and to be fair, I mean, you want to be anxious to cover that stuff, right? So
yes, yeah. But unfortunately, given it was a 2-person crew with me and Ed, it was difficult to meet those expectations, and a lot of resources weren't there. And just along with the fact that we were willfully hosting and doing the show for free, at a certain point, it became unsustainable. And collectively, Ed and Kira and I got together, and we felt that for the work we're putting into this show, it would be fair, if we're going to go forward, to restructure it as a worker-owned co-op, because that's essentially what it was. Because we were operating on our own, separate from Hardlands Media. You know, Kit was involved peripherally, and he was the executive producer, and he would join us for some broadcasts, but the responsibility of really doing the show was on us.
Yeah.
So we felt that it was only fair, especially in light of the fact that we weren't being paid, that we had a stake in our work, sweat equity stake, or we were ready to walk. I mean, let's be honest. We had these conversations. We either needed to form as a worker-owned co-op, start getting paid for the extra responsibilities, or we were ready to walk away from it. So we did propose restructuring as a worker-owned co-op in affiliation with Hardlands Media, where stuff started, and it was rebuffed, and we were counteroffered to buy Chicago Corner, which we negotiated. So it was kind of a little bit of a surprise that proposing something that would, you know, support the rights of people who are putting a lot of their work and commitment and time into producing a show twice a week, with the amount of time we had to put into it, propose something we felt was equitable. But once that counter proposal came forward, and we were also ready to walk, you know, I don't know, was it cooler heads that prevailed? For the amount of investment that we all put in the show, we figured maybe we should figure out how to negotiate this offer to keep the fruits of our labor from the past 2 years and figure out how to continue it, because we do enjoy doing it. We feel a responsibility to our viewers, and I guess it would open up the opportunity for us not only to officially on paper be credited for what we do and the responsibilities that we have, but make our own decisions without having to rely on going somewhere else and asking for resources and funding to do the things we want to do, and those resources and funds are not there. As I said earlier, it'll open us up for the opportunity to perhaps, I don't know, get a small business loan now that we're organized this way, invite other people to join our co-op, the way that it's structured with bylaws, to do it properly, legally on paper, so that everybody's protected and it's fair. So yeah, I think aside from that one news organization, I think I saw in Chicago, there's a journalist-run worker-owned co-op, and I'm forgetting the name of it. I think we might be the first.
Block Club you're thinking of?
Not Block Club, no. It was an alliance of journalists that Laney, I think, shared with me.
What is it called? I can't think of it either.
Well, I think that we might be one of the first, or among the first, worker-owned media co-ops in Chicago, which is exciting. And you know, when we proposed this, we thought it'd be an opportunity for everyone. But you know, it's like, well, all right, let's step back, re-examine how we can do this, and feel like our interests are fairly served, so that we can continue doing this and figure out a way to do it sustainably. Now, it's ironic, Warren, a lot of our decision to possibly walk had to do with the fact that there's a lot of work involved. And I was going to feel like, oh, the millstone's off my neck. Well, the millstone's still on my neck, but at least I can feel some pride in the fact we're the owners making the decisions, trying to figure out how to monetize this. And to the point of the big, I don't want to say liability, the big challenge to Chicago Corner was we've always only been focused on local news and politics. I had this conversation the other night with Ed, and I'm going to bring it up with Kira. Chicago Corner's no longer going to be just focusing on Chicago news and politics. We're basically realigning the mission statement of the show to be focusing on news and politics in Chicago and the nation from a Chicago point of view, which will hopefully attract more national viewers to our channel and help us become sustainable, because we only have 1,600 subscribers. And without the marketing or promotional opportunities and the expenses that come with that for people to discover us on YouTube, maybe now, as we're part of this ecosystem, we can continue to align more with a national audience, joining hosts like yourself, KRTD Media, who's always been very kind to us, Jimmy, Sean Coughlin over at KRTD, and we kind of did that on the New Year's Eve day show that we participated in to try and grow our national lines. But we understand if you live in the U.S., somewhere else in the U.S., why are you going to care about what's happening in Chicago? Well, there's the solution. We will start talking about national issues as well. And
it's not like we haven't already, actually.
Yeah.
Because we realized early on, or like, there's a lot of stuff happening in Chicago that's probably happening in other cities and affecting everyone else. And it was very clear when the train derailments started happening everywhere. And we had just was it Cincinnati? No, Ohio had the train derailment with the mushroom cloud. And this was like literally a day after Chicago City Council had gone and approved some deal with Norfolk Southern.
Yeah, on our south side where they drive through. So it's like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of possibly when. So we talked about the Ohio story as it related to what could potentially happen in Chicago. But we've talked about national politics, and I think it's, if we can figure out how to do it so that we're not cheating one or the other. One of the ideas Ed and I had was maybe Tuesday would be national news, Friday would be Chicago news, because at the end of the week, you're wrapping up Chicago news. Usually the big national news happens at the beginning of the week when you're covering things, or maybe really trying to keep track of our time and splitting our Tuesday shows, Chicago and national. We're not sure yet, but we're hoping that it will help make us sustainable and appealing to a broader audience to build our subscription base so that when we need resources to do more and actually operate as a news organization the way we were expected to, without the resources we felt we needed, we can hopefully do that.
Yeah, and then when we have more people watching us, we'll have a bigger base of people that we can promote to possible sponsors.
Yes, yes.
Like, for example, our very first sponsor, P.L. Sullivan's International Chicken Wing and Currency Exchange. P.L. Sullivan's International Chicken Wing and Currency Exchange. Behind that one alley. You know the one.
So what's the story behind this, Ed? Because I didn't know about this sponsor. They just and I think it may have been when I was in LA, or I missed what the history was with this. But how did you?
Well, some of you out there may not be familiar with our channel, Chicago Corner. But if you aren't, please follow us on YouTube and all the other channels. We've been following a story. There was a woman handling food service in a Chicago suburb who was caught purchasing 11,000 cases of chicken wings worth over $1 million. And her name, so
that's fun.
I was like, okay, they arrested her. She had a court date. Where did the wings go? Because none of the news outlets were reporting that. None of them know.
Which was very, very hinky.
Yeah, very
hinky.
Yeah, where are you gonna stash that many $1 million worth of wings? I mean, like, what do you do with that?
We were watching the news cycle, and Ed came across a story that I forgot what the phrase was, but that sometimes money can be laundered through government procurements. And we were starting to suspect that maybe the reason there hasn't been more news released about this was because this procurement of the wings, in culinary services through the school, somehow we're serving some kind of money laundering operations.
Yeah, and then I found, then there was a news story that popped up that kind of sort of confirmed it. And I was like,
that story is what confirmed what I just said. I mean, we started realizing, putting the pieces together, maybe that's what it's about.
There is literally international money laundering ring that governments have been following, not just the U.S. government, but the Canadian government as well, where people are purchasing frozen goods like chicken wings as a way to hide some kind of money laundering scheme. And I'm like,
but now how does this tie in with P.L. Sullivan?
P.L. Sullivan, we suspect may actually be a ghost, a literal ghost.
Peg-leg Sullivan, who was reportedly responsible for setting the Great Chicago Fire.
Yes,
Not
and
the cow.
actually recently exonerated.
Hey, no, that cow. Don't try to exonerate that cow. That cow's guilty as shit.
Well,
All
I think
right?
to
it's
be fair,
pregnant.
they don't know if the cow was coaxed into kicking over the lantern, but
The
P.L.
cow was
Sullivan, his
drunk.
hands are
All
clean.
right. Everybody knew the cow was a big drinker. Was always at the bars. Always
So
the
was-
last one to leave.
It's true.
So was Pegleg, and he was supposedly he hung out in the O'Leary barn.
Yeah,
Pegleg was buying the cow
was-
beers. He was buying
had
the
a-
cow booze. Sorry.
Pegleg
This is-
was a beer delivery guy, believe it or not, and
See?
his family had a cow in the same barn as the O'Learys, and so I think part of his chores were feeding the cows.
Mhm.
But apparently, the night of the Chicago fire, which there was some party going on not too far away, and so people were roaming between the bar and where this party was happening, and the suspicion is that someone in there was doing something and accidentally kicked the lantern over or caused the cow to kick the lantern over, although I think
Right.
they're really just blaming the cow because they
Yeah,
can't
I blame
blame
the cow.
Mrs. O'Leary anymore.
You know what? You know what the cow was doing? That's they. There's never enough. That's what happened. And then X is for eyes, and then boom, there's fire. So
Yeah, well, how
and
do
then-
you think they make chocolate milk, Uncle Warren?
It was good hamburgers. So
The point being, a national audience will make us more attractive to sponsors to say, let's give them some money, because they've got a wide audience that might buy the products that we do, live reads, or may actually produce some sponsor spots for on the show, which is something that we always thought was a good idea, gaining sponsorship. You can't just live off of YouTube super chats.
Yes, thank you for
Unlike
steering
what
us
some
back
people
out
do.
of the ditch, Jerry.
Yes, I always
yes,
do that.
I mean, I talk about food all the time, obviously.
I hate that fucking cow.
And anything
I really
we
hate
talk
that
about
fucking cow.
locally, anything we talk about locally is ripe for us to be looking, in local restaurants or local businesses that might be interested, might share our politics, or might just want to look for another audience base to sell their stuff to. And we're a pretty good platform to do it, and we'll be even better when we get more people watching us.
And Kira's been exploring that for us. That's what she's behind the scenes doing stuff, but she was looking into finding sponsors for us. And, that's going to be very, very important to sustain ourselves, moving forward.
Well, I mean, I can't really say anything about sponsorships because we have two new sponsors on the Secret Show that we do Saturday nights on YouTube, Rockfin, and on Twitch. And I'm trying to pull them up here if I can do that. So one of them here is speaking of chicken. I don't know if I can do this or not. We're gonna give this the old college try.
Yeah, I see Snork Y2K is mentioning the Peshtigo, Wisconsin fire. There were a number of fires in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Chicago that happened around the same time because the weather conditions in the area in the late 1870s were like that in that season. And so it wouldn't have been a shock for any spark to really set off a blaze in a number of cities, and it just happens to be that Chicago was the most famous one.
Everybody knows that cow was a pyromaniac. Ed, stop defending it. So this is one of our sponsors here is Big Ernie's Chicken Shack. Big Ernie's, we're out on the highway.
Oh, maybe that's where the wings went.
Yeah,
You went with a
Ed
big-
went so far as to start looking at the proximity of all the Harold's. Was it Brown's chickens or Harold's chickens
Harold's.
around?
Yeah,
Harold's
I was
loves
like,
Harold, a lot of
Harvey,
chicken.
Illinois, let's see how many fried chicken places in the area. There were like 6 Harold's chickens within the vicinity of that school. And I'm like, it would have been really easy for her to do an under the table cash kind of deal. So these guys could get a larger load of chicken wings to sell and they could have wing specials. And I'm like, if anybody in Chicago wanted to do research on like, when were they having wing specials? When were these transactions taking place?
I can't say that Big Ernie's was involved because they'll stop paying us. But I could say that Bud Spanky's oral sex parlor, though, could possibly be one of the culprits. Bud Spanky's oral sex parlor, we blow away the competition. So
it's an entire parlor. I'm impressed.
Oh yeah, it's fancy. There's like red velvet and silk curtains. Yeah, this is top shelf, man. There's no fucking around with these people. You know, when you want a good blowjob and you don't want to do it in a crack house, you go to Bud Spanky's. So anyway, so bringing it back, hopefully, out of that
let's
pit.
get back on the tracks here, out of the ditch.
I'm a super fan of Chicago Corner.
Thank you.
You know, and you've had me on the show a couple of times too, which I really do appreciate.
Had Jimmy on too not too long ago when she was stuck up in San Bernardino. Yeah.
That's right. That was a great show too. And and I discovered Chicago Corner through Hardlands Media, and so because you guys would like I know Ed was always in the chat. I always see Ed all the time in the chat, and sometimes I think you came on Wednesdays, didn't you, Jerry?
Oh yeah, I was doing Tuesday shows with Kit. Kit invited me to go into the studio that I used to have.
Yeah, you were doing the Tuesday shows, and Lainey was on Thursdays. She would come on Thursdays. And
then when we got in the studio, I would do the shows from home on the live on the camera.
And then seeing Kira too, on there, I fell in love with Kira, mostly with her earrings, because she always had these really nice eclectic earrings, and I always had comments about that.
I fall in love with regarding Kira, her laugh.
Yeah,
her laugh is infectious. It lights up a room. She's so funny when if you say something funny to be able to earn a laugh from her, the laugh is better than the joke or whatever it was that inspired her to laugh. So it's just very warm, and it lightens things up even more.
I got to tell you, I had her on not too long ago, a few months ago, and she is just a ball of energy. She is just she's just a joy to talk to. She really is. She's just like, and I'm so glad that you guys have somebody in the mix like that. Not that you guys aren't great to talk to. I mean, you all have.
Yeah. In time, hopefully she'll come back more after she has her second baby. But another thing too, which we understood, very difficult for her to juggle her home business and the responsibilities that we have on the show and a child for free. So hopefully our progress moving forward, as we figure out how to make this sustainable and actually, pay ourselves and have the resources to do what we do and grow it more, because it's a challenge. I mean, you know this, I don't have to tell you, but for people who are juggling other jobs, we have to reevaluate things and figure out what the best.
Yeah, you have to take priority for your own personal situation, because you got bills to pay, right? You got to pay those bills. And even though I love doing this show because it gives us an outlet for, I think it's a good public service for one thing. I think we're providing a good service to people. We're giving a different perspective than what everybody else is giving in local media right now.
Mainstream news filters, yeah.
Yeah, and we're analyzing things that people are just not analyzing sometimes. Sometimes we focus on the wings, but other times it's actual things going on in the city that affects everyone here. And sometimes we're not hearing all the information from the mainstream outlets. So like Jerry, for example, he lets us know about the red light cameras and all and there's a lot of insight in that as far as
a lot of corruption there. Yeah. From my own experiences that I actually took to court and litigated successfully, that suddenly how I defended those appeals, that disappeared, even though the laws are still the same. Because once I started sharing it on a Facebook page, suddenly all the administrative law judges got their marching orders. Oh, no, don't accept this, even though we're looking at letter of the law stuff. But I mean, that's just one little thing.
Yeah, but it's things like that, though.
Gamer for Life in the chat. I will miss the civically minded Thursday shows as well. Well, and ladies in the chat, hey dear.
I was going to say the ladies.
if we can figure out how to pay our workers, and compensate them for their time, Lainey has expressed an interest in doing a civically minded Chicago corner. So we'll see what happens. Lainey's also a very valuable colleague behind the scenes throughout this whole process of proposing our worker-owned co-op, which we now are.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we can do some collaborations with her Chicago Wine Report, though.
Yes,
and I know she's been harping on me to do a pizza episode of her Chicago Wine Report.
Ooh.
Okay, well, we'll have to have a pizza party, and then we'll film it, and we'll obviously Lainey's gonna bring wine, and we'll have pairings with deep dish, which will be exciting.
Did I refer to her as a valuable colleague? I meant esteemed colleague.
Yeah, she's esteemed.
She's an esteemed.
Well, she is
colleague.
Valuable too. She has great
valuable
value
and esteemed.
Exactly. When I look
like
at
gold-plated broccoli.
In this space,
wait.
You done, Ed?
Sorry,
I'm trying to give you a compliment, you asshole.
I got silly for a second. I'm sorry, Uncle.
In this space, right, people forget that pretty much all of us, at least the great majority of all of us we're doing other things. We're doing stuff to put food on the table, to put a roof over the head. A lot of us are not able to reap as much benefit from the show monetarily in order to sustain a life, in order to do the job more that we want to. So we have to do these other jobs outside in order for us to live and then to be able to do these kind of things. So I think with that, though, I think people who aren't streamers, who are viewers, who watch these shows, like watch your show, maybe watch this show, and Lainey and others, they see us as more real people, right? Like we're in the shit, we're in the trenches with them, living our lives, trying to survive this hellscape right along with them. We just happen to be providing like entertainment, maybe in my case, and like news of Chicago there, and now national news with Chicago Corner. And I think there's that respect for these kind of people that provide that information, because it's like if they were doing it themselves, right? They're talking to a friend who's giving them information, and that's how I see Chicago Corner. It's like a friend.
It's all conversation. Yeah, it's a conversation. Yeah. It's not a monologue. It's not a soap. Although sometimes it becomes a soapbox for me, I admit.
Yeah. I mean, I do that too. And I grew up. I think it's valuable context.
And we also, I think we can also share that. I grew up in Chicago listening to a rich array of personalities on talk radio, especially at a station here called WLUP. We had Jonathan Brandmeier, we had Steve Dahl and Gary Meyer, we had Kevin Matthews, we had, what is her name? Wonderful female newscaster, and I'm ashamed I'm forgetting her name now. But so I grew up listening to that stuff thinking, God, it would be so fun to kind of do that stuff, talk radio. And what we do on Chicago Corner, I think, is personality-driven content, personality-driven commentary, personality-driven podcasts. I mean, I think podcasts used to be associated with listening to something on your iPod, but now a podcast is also like visual. So I think that, and I also really appreciate Lainey sharing with us as we've been kind of going through these growing pains, her faith in the fact that we've got something really special here. We hearken back to the personality-driven type of shows that we grew up on watching on WGN television or listening to on the radio that I think is kind of absent in Chicago right now. I mean, we've got Man Cow, who's a disaster, but I can't think of anything else off the top of that asshole. But I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head that reminds me of, I want to tune into that person and hear what they're thinking, talking about with their friends, their colleagues, their co-hosts on their show. And one of the things we hope might evolve for Chicago Corner is sharing our show, sharing our personality-driven format to see if maybe there's opportunities outside of YouTube, because people enjoy our banter, our irreverent take on things. And we're always going to stay irreverent. When we did that New Year's Eve day show in association with KRTD, we were simulcasting on Sabby Sab's channel. And, God love her. We respect what Sabby does, but a lot of her viewers who weren't, I guess, familiar with our irreverent banter, were like in the live chat, like, who are these people with, they're not very serious. And it's like, well, no, we're not. And if you don't like it, go somewhere else, because that's what this is about. We have to make it relatable. We're not high on our thrones. Like, we have to, do stuff like this.
Yeah.
And we're ourselves. We're no bullshit.
Yeah.
No bullshit.
If you don't have a sense of humor in Chicago, you're not going to last very long.
It's true too.
Because we grew up with the stories of corruption, and we're living in it now.
Most corrupt city in the country.
So we even had Lightfoot sent out a mailer to people with the vote early and vote often quote that most people just joke about in the city.
They were pissed off she did that, though,
which is based on an actual thing where dead people were voting back in Old Man Daley's
days. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You don't do that today. You don't publish that in your campaign postcard and not even put a wink in there that it's a joke, because it's illegal.
Well, she thought it was a joke, and she didn't mean it. But the fact that she thought it was funny, when this is the type of corruption we want to get rid of, it's not even a fucking joking matter. For the mayor of the city, the sitting mayor of the city, in her campaign literature to joke vote early, vote often, that's not funny. That just basically telegraphs how acceptable the corruption has been, that you can make light of it.
Well, and it also tells you just how out of touch she was to even consider that was an acceptable thing to do. I mean, her entire campaign. I don't know. I guess we'll go on a little Lightfoot rant for a minute here, if that's okay with you, Uncle Warren.
Please, you're my guest. Do so.
Her whole mayoral run was basically, let's do all the fun stuff. Let's do all the promotional things. When they had the lockdown, she dressed up in costume as the Rona destroyer.
Well, have you seen that image of her? Can we share it with your viewers? Let's find a link so they know what we're talking about.
She does all these things that if we were actually in a decent economy and she was doing all the things that she promised, it would be cute, but instead she was like, it's like, you're driving your city into the ground, but you're doing all these little sticky media things. And meanwhile, people can't find food to eat. People can't get a roof over their head. Homeless people are in tents under every bridge and overpass. Maybe don't dress up in a costume during a pandemic lockdown.
Well, she thought, she did this at Halloween, and she thought that this would be something, to keep the kids safe. But here, I just sent you a link in the private chat. So it's only 39 seconds, but you can get a little. And it was like, really, do you ever imagine Rahm Emanuel would have done that? I don't think so. But she likes to dress up she dressed up as a leprechaun. I think that Lori and her wife Amy have a very, very vibrant cosplay life in the bedroom,
which is fine,
and that's fine. But it. Not that I'm worried about dignity, but I'm some asshole with a YouTube show. The mayor's office should have a little bit more dignity associated with it. And as Ed said, this just seemed like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? This is not a good look. I don't know. People can Google it, or I don't know if you're able to show it on your end.
That leprechaun thing, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Before we go, looks like trick or treating.
Y'all be scaring the kids with that leprechaun shit.
Well,
this is what Ed was talking about. It was like, no, we're in dire times here. You look like a clown. You're not. And the thing was, I think that what happened too is the celebrity went to her head, because she would do karaoke videos, the cities, and we would we created a graph. Well, no, I altered a graphic I found on Twitter of her filing her nails instead of Chicago burning behind her, because she was more, I think, obsessed with her celebrity and her presence than actually, realizing that's meaningless. Your celebrity. This is a dire time. Here we go. It's funny.
Right.
Well, before we go, looks like trick or treating will be happening in Chicago this year.
Oh, this is on a national news show.
Oh, wow. That
Yeah,
looks like
Chicago
some
Mayor
low
Lori
budget
Lightfoot coming out in full
Robin.
costume, cape and mask as the Rona, as in Corona Destroyer, heading out candy to reporters and staff at her daily news conference. Trick-or-treaters will be asked to stay in groups of 6 or fewer there, avoid sticking their hands into any candy bowls, and of course, wear a mask with a mask over a mask.
So here's my take on it, okay? I guess it was well-intentioned, but you know what? Hire someone to dress up as a Rotor Destroyer. Don't do it yourself, okay? Because you're the mayor and you look like a fucking clown.
Yeah, and what's even more tragic is she got Arwady to go along with it as well. I'm wondering if it was even her idea.
I was about to say how well intentioned. That wasn't very well intentioned. It was probably like
it wasn't well
not
received.
well thought out. It's just well, now she has plenty of time to wear her costume since she's not going to be mayor anymore. So, God, God bless her.
Yeah, they're gonna rehab her reputation like they did George W. Bush, right?
Well, Shane Cargill came on our show last year and said that the Democratic Party in New York was putting up a trial balloon on how media broadcasters would feel. Why media broadcasters? Because they know they're going to rely on them to basically float this for acceptance. How did they feel about Lori Lightfoot running for Congress? No, I'm sorry, Lori Lightfoot running for governor. And she's reviled here across the state. Why would they think that she can win the governor's seat if Pritzker decides to go run for higher office, maybe in Washington? And Shane shared with us, we did a whole show with Shane on this, that, they never expected her to win the governor's seat, but it would be good national exposure so they could then run her for Congress so they could have a controlling seat in Congress. Because this is all just pawns around a board to keep control of Congress. And we thought, wow. And Don Lemon, CNN's resident male Men's Warehouse mannequin, said, I'm from Chicago and I'd be happy to, promote her and do it. And Shane and other people were just like aghast at this horrible idea, but they're floating it by the media first to see how's this going to play. Are we going to get their support nationally after she's out of Chicago politics to figure out how we can use her as a loyal foot soldier to control the national scene? And she'll do it if they decide there's any mileage left in her. But she made sure to announce to Chicago. I don't know that she realized how ridiculous this would look before the primary election here, that she went on LinkedIn, right? Good thing she started her LinkedIn.
Follow her on LinkedIn.
Because I hope it's very successful for her now. She's going to need it, depending on where she is.
She's going to need LinkedIn.
By all means, everybody follow Lori Lightfoot on LinkedIn. Let her know how you feel about everything.
Let's see what we can.
We had a very funny
job leads.
Should we see if we can run the? I don't care. We should have Warren run the Lori Lightfoot video you created, Ed. Are you cool with it?
Which one?
The one that we were told.
The endorsement one?
No. The one at Lord Tillo's.
Oh, the holiday one?
No, the one at Lord Tillo's.
Oh, that was the endorsement one. Yeah.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah. Let me find it and I'll send Warren the link because hopefully your audience will appreciate it. Now that she's gone, we can't play it as much anymore because she's done with. But let me see if I can find it, unless Ed beats me to it.
While you're doing that, I'm going to share this with the kids, the old Lori Lightfoot on LinkedIn here. So there she is. The Her Honor, the mayor, Lori Lightfoot.
Now on LinkedIn.
Worked at a White Castle. Let's see. She worked at. She was a Teletubby. What else was she? She had.
She was the Rona Destroyer. Oh, is this a fake LinkedIn?
No, that's her LinkedIn.
Oh, okay, that's a real one.
No, the Teletubby was fake. I was. If she would have had Teletubby on there, you kidding? I'd be like, what?
Well, you thought being a Rona Destroyer made sense. I sent you the link. Now we stopped playing this on our show because she's done. And we caught a little bit of flack by someone we respect.
Well, there was some concern about a white person doing a black person's voice, and I'm like, this is not us doing like a stereotype caricature.
It's not blackface. She has a very notable,
literally had a raspy voice that we were trying to imitate, and And the funny thing about that is that I heard an interview recently where apparently she's had so much time away from doing any kind of press conferences or anything that she's actually getting her voice back. She's not hoarse anymore.
Yeah, that's probably what it came from. But Ed is a great impressionist, and Ed would always throw these videos together for our shows, doing Lori Lightfoot stuff. And this is Lori Lightfoot's endorsement after she lost the primary.
Hello, my name is Lori Lightfoot, and I am no longer running for mayor. I'm actually recording this from my new job as a... Hold on, I have to take this. Welcome to Lortillo's. Are you picking up a mobile order? I told you to stop calling it that. The restaurant name starts with a P, not an L. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. You did not order onion rings. It clearly says crinkle fries and a cake shake. Sorry about that. Where was I? Oh, while I am no longer in the running, I do realize that it is endorsement season. And since I did have some support in the primary, mostly from people not paying very close attention, I would like to, at this time, announce that I will fully support the candidate who most reflects the spirit of my broken campaign promises, as I hope they will actually be able to follow through on them, instead of just providing lip service and mostly empty gestures. And that candidate is...
Aww. And you get a little plug in there too. That's nice. Good job.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I know it was kind of clickbait there, but you know, we did get what, 2,400 views or something?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Oh, let me see how many views. Yeah, it got us a lot of views. It was very successful. I mean, we put it up. We didn't expect all the views. It was just like
660 views.
Everyone was waiting to see if she would endorse. We had 660 views.
Oh, 660. Oh, it was the holiday one. I think we got 24.
No, it was.
Was it?
I think it was the fair Requiem to the Biggest Dick in Chicago.
Oh, that edit you did. Okay, yeah.
Should we show that? Should we share that with Warren? Let me see if I can find that one. It was our once she lost. This was our Schadenfreude victory lap.
See, folks, you don't even have to be from Chicago to enjoy this show, right? You could just say, like, stuff like this. This happens all the time, so it's quality entertainment at a low price.
This is the spirit of Chicago Corner. So when you tune in, this is the kind of humor you're going to be getting.
And you need that too. You really do,
it's
because
important. It's important to do parody and to mock our officials.
So
especially when you need to.
And the reason we titled this video Requiem to the Biggest Dick in Chicago is that Lori Lightfoot was sued by, I guess, some Italian staffers or some Italian city workers as a result of the fact that when they raised objections to the fact that the Columbus statue had been removed from Grant Park because of protests and activism, and they challenged her on returning the statue. If I'm remembering the details correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, apparently, you know, she was very offended by the fact that they would raise issue with this or take it to a higher level of a protest. And she said to them, you know, you dicks, what were you thinking? I've got the biggest dick in Chicago, is what she told these city workers. And they ended up suing her because I think that she slandered one of them, or there was some kind of shit behind the scenes. But she's on the record as claiming that Lori Lightfoot claims that because of her power, obviously it's because of her power, her position and stature, she's got the biggest dick in Chicago. So we decided to do our Requiem to the Biggest Dick in Chicago the day after she lost. Enjoy.
So is this I'm playing it from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
How could you possibly even consider running for re-election as mayor of the city of Chicago after all the harm you've caused?
Don, I disagree with you fundamentally, and I don't think I need to address and dignify your comments 1 second further. Next question.
Got another candidate today with Alderman Sawyer, just kind of reaction and maybe any kind of hints about when you might make a decision?
So, you know, another day, another man who thinks he can do his job better than me.
I'm just going to keep doing my work. I'm not going to worry about the folks who are jumping in. I think I feel very comfortable with the list of accomplishments. And what I've got to do is just keep telling our story. Now, I've directed Superintendent
that was the mayor's motorcade running speed
police
cameras while she was telling everyone else that they have to pay their speed camera bills. Her motorcade was routinely through school zones, running the red lights and running past the speed cameras at high speeds. Anyway, that's the context.
To give special attention to these parties. And this is how it's going to be. We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period. It makes no sense for us to be increasing the speeds around parks and schools when we know what the horrific consequences are. I'm not going to get into the specifics. We continue to work with NASCAR to make sure that we minimize the disruption to traffic and that we minimize any damage to our roads. The level of excitement that I have seen from people that, frankly, were probably closeted NASCAR fans all across our city, I think it's off the charts.
Your office says that you invited black and brown journalists to this round of interview. Why?
As a woman of color, as a lesbian, it's important to me that diversity is put front and center.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
We have the responsibility to review this process in an administration that is more worried about campaign contributions than doing the right thing for the city of Chicago.
You are out of order. You are out of order. And you are a liar. You are a liar, sir, and you are out of order. I sit here and I will not tolerate you besmirching the hard work of...
Who is that guy?
That's one of our notable progressive champion aldermen in Chicago, Byron Sigcho Lopez. Yeah.
So many people who have worked in this. You may not agree. You may not agree, then vote no. I'm very confident in my reelection. And I'm very confident that what you will see is a range of support across the city. Any vote coming on the side for somebody not named Lightfoot is a vote for Chewy Garcia or Paul Bell.
That's it. That's it.
If you want them controlling your fate and your destiny, then stay home. Then don't vote.
Don't vote. Well, they did vote.
Yeah, came in fourth. She didn't even make it to the runoff. She didn't even make it close to the runoff. That's crazy.
That was a glorious time for us on our live stream when that happened.
Yeah, because this was everything. This was really, look, as much as we enjoy doing the show, there was a mission to make sure, look, it didn't have anything to do with our little show. But we enjoyed telling people, don't vote for her again. I mean, you saw the damage she's done. So at least we feel that we helped fuel the spirit of making sure that she was not reelected.
Being modest, though, Jerry, I think we had a huge impact in Lori Lightfoot not getting
we didn't.
Past the primary. No, I mean, we did actually get the Chicago Corner Manifesto to a good number of the people running. And we did get the word out that she was terrible. I mean, even regardless of what kind of reach we had on our YouTube channel, I'm sure it got around on social media.
Yeah.
In fact, after this video, if I can indulge, if you would indulge us, Warren, I actually got an opportunity to interview Brandon Johnson at one of the mayoral forums. Who we hope will be our next mayor. So I can share that link too, so people can get a flavor of what Brandon Johnson's about. But yeah, let's finish up with Lori here.
Are you, as an incumbent, running as an underdog?
No, look, well, first of all, I'm a black woman. I'm always running as an underdog. Let's just be clear about that. I'm feeling very good. A lot of people that we saw over the course of the weekend in different parts of the city said that they were going to honor their normal tradition in voting on Election Day. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. 4 years ago this time, polling showed that I was about 1%. And, there were bigger names in, more money, and here I sit.
Stunning defeat for Mayor Lightfoot, who got just over 16% of the vote.
No, sir. No, sir.
Wait a minute, 16%?
That was on election night, yeah.
Yeah, I think when all the votes came in from the mail-in ballots and everything, it was close to 17.
Yeah. Like that's any better.
It was still less than Chuy Garcia. So, if she was worried about him being a spoiler, it was a spoiler for her getting past the primaries.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
And
sir.
here's a perfect
You will stop
example
speaking.
of Thin Skin Lori.
You will stop speaking. You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There it is. Oh God.
She told us to follow her on LinkedIn.
She did. She sure did.
I was like, I can't believe it's like she knew. It's like she knew she wasn't going to win.
Hey, Chicago's it's a big town, but it's not that big to where word can't get around quick. You know what I mean? So, it's very possible that you sunk her campaign. So, congratulations.
We gotta set. I think we should. We gotta set up a Chicago Corner page on LinkedIn now, Jerry, so we can follow Lori.
But we handed the Chicago Corner manifesto to Brandon Johnson, that was thankfully graciously compiled by Ed with input from our viewers on Chicago Corner. The Chicago Corner manifesto was issues that we felt all the mayoral candidates should basically have on their radar. And when we covered one of the local mayoral forums, we set up our little Chicago Corner sign and corralled all of the candidates to come talk to us. Paul Vallis wasn't there. He wasn't there pre-debate forum because he was stuck in traffic, but I did get the opportunity to talk to him.
He was probably commuting from the suburbs.
You're right, from Palos Heights. Yeah, you're right.
So now which one is this again? What's this interview?
This is Brandon Johnson. This is who we're hoping will win tomorrow.
Okay.
Brandon Johnson. I'm sorry? Chicago
and Central is my corner. If you put Central there, you're on the west side of Chicago.
I don't know if you're familiar with our show, Chicago Corner. We broadcast on Rockfin and YouTube. We cover news, politics, commentary, and analysis on the city of Chicago. And you and every other candidate has been a very focal part of our conversation as the new mayoral election is coming up. So first of all, congratulations on your candidacy. It's very exciting to be supported by the Chicago Teachers Union. We've commented on the show that, where you stepped up and Congressman Garcia was not willing to do the same. It's like you run for Congress, you got that in the bag, but now you come back later and you want to run. It's like, it seems like an potential abdication of service to the state to suddenly jump into the mayoral race. But I guess what I'm saying is I salute you for tell us a little bit about your thoughts on, okay, so here's an important issue that is kind of related to schools. Sadly, we have seen a rampant amount of scandals in Chicago public schools regarding sex abuse, grooming. I was actually going to ask Paul Vallis about this because this was a big scandal when he was chief of Chicago public schools. So as mayor, what could proactively be done to, I guess, really enforce a no tolerance policy across the entire educational system? Because it seems like there's been looking the other way for too long, and kids are the ones who are victimized. I know it's enough to be a big serious problem. So how would you propose that? What's a preventative solution for that, as opposed to we find out about it and then things aren't investigated and it happens again, to protect children across the city of Chicago?
Yeah, everything that we can do to protect the children of the city of Chicago is top priority. As you may know, I'm a public school teacher, started teaching 15 years ago, and my children are students in the public schools. I have a third, a fifth grader, and a freshman. And of course, I've been an organizer in Chicago fighting for accountability. And one of those things that we have fought for, and I was on the ground organizing, is for an elected representative school board. The reason why there hasn't been transparency is because there's been a lack of democracy. And so when I'm mayor of Chicago, not only am I going to make sure that the members who are part of the school board, at least in this first iteration, reflect the values of our community. I'm going to do everything in my ability to make sure we're electing individuals who have a vested interest in our children. And so between an elected representative school board, having someone who has tremendous incentive for this system to work and to be transparent, that's the type of leadership that I bring to this debate, and that's the type of leadership that I'll bring to the fifth floor. So again, it's making sure our elected representative school board is a functioning body, and I'll help to do that. But it's also making sure we have the right leadership in the meantime. So that's having leaders at every single level within our public school system that love and support and care for our children and our families. And transparency is a major part of the work that I've done as a Cook County Commissioner, and it's what I'm going to do once I'm mayor of Chicago.
So one of our viewers, Dominic Palella, one of our patrons, had a question. As a candidate, how would you look to, and could you do this, and how would you do it, town hall meetings to get direct feedback from the citizens of Chicago in regards to how the city's budget is put together and spent? You know, because the city's budget, we see so much money allocated to the police department. We're not anti-law enforcement, and I think defund is a horrible phrase. Reallocation for mental health clinics, to look into infrastructure and investing in communities could helpfully stave off and prevent crime instead of overloading the police department with an enormous amount of money that doesn't seem to be reducing crime. So our viewer thought that it would be very, very important to figure out how mayors could, and we'll let you go in a moment, how mayors could open up a forum for the citizens to have feedback, actually forums to like share their thoughts on.
That's critical. The progressive movement that I've helped, lead in this city started, these type of budget conversations within our community, where we are transparent in local wards. And of course, we're calling for participatory budgeting. As mayor of Chicago, I'm going to expand that and continue to do that. In order for us to actually have a city that works, you have to have the voices of the people participating in that. So having town halls across this city so that we can pass a budget that speaks to working class and middle class folks, that's paramount. That's what's actually going to make sure that our city thrives and works for everyone. Yeah. No, she's been a real disappointment, a real failure. She's broken every single promise. I, on the other hand, I'm a promise keeper, and you have my commitment to make sure that we're engaging the electorate so that we can actually have a Chicago that works for everyone.
One last thing.
Yep.
We have on our show what we irreverently call the Chicago Corner Manifesto. It's actually a list of important issues that come in from all of our viewers regarding things that they hope that all mayoral candidates will address. This is not for tonight. It's your homework, though, to take with you. So if you can review it, maybe fill it out, share your thoughts. If you agree with things, email me back. We'd love to have you on the show, one of our live streams, to talk about all of these issues that our viewers are.
Homework for a teacher.
Thank you, and good luck to you.
Appreciate you all.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We almost booked him, but there were unfortunately scheduling conflicts about 2 weeks ago, and it's a busy man. A lot of campaigning to do and appearances to make on channels with more than our subscriber base, and I completely understand that. I mean, it's like, yeah, really, who are we? At least he made the effort. We almost had him, but we gave him the Chicago Corner Manifesto, which many of those issues that questions and concerns that came from our viewers were the topics of a lot of the candidates throughout this debate season. And I thank Ed again for compiling the list.
I mean, I know that we were not the originators of every policy that we've listed on there, but it was interesting to see during the primaries, we had like 3 or 4 candidates that were covering a lot of those policies on their own list. And so it was weird and I can't be certain how much of an influence we had by Jerry handing those out.
We didn't have any, because one of the I found one of them on the table crumpled up. It's like one of them just dumped it after they. I think it was Roderick Sawyer. Because during my interview with Roderick Sawyer, who was a candidate, he was rolling it up, like a scroll, and the one that I found on the ground was rolled up like a scroll. So I think it was Roderick Sawyer.
Oh, that is low rent, man. You at least. Look, if you're gonna be shitty about it, let's just take it home and do it. Throw it away at home. Don't like crumple it up like you. Oh man, that's terrible. Well, that fucker didn't win, so.
No, he came in last. And by the way, he came in last. I believe Sawyer was last. Yeah.
Karma's a bitch. Yeah. So anyway, well, that kind of brings us full circle here to talking about the election and talking about your coverage of it. That was a great interview, by the way, too. with Johnson there. So
I was a little bit. I don't know. I'm working on my interviews.
It sucked, Jerry. I was just trying to be nice. Anyway,
it seemed like Jerry had a lot on his mind, and he wasn't sure how to focus the questions. But he got all this stuff out there that I think a lot of the other forums eventually started asking. So it was interesting. So, like I said, I think we had probably more influence than we realized, just because we don't really know who's watching us. Right. When they watch us after the live stream's over. So could people in local media or could people in different campaigns have been watching us after the fact? Well, we know some of them were.
Some people said at that forum they knew who we were. And it's like, I didn't know if it was in a good way or a bad way. Oh, yeah, we've heard of you guys.
Jerry from Chicago Corner. Yes.
There's no such thing as bad publicity. It's that's a time-honored tradition. So yeah, if it famous or infamous, either way, people are knowing who you are and people are discovering you too. And your channel is growing too. So and I'm looking forward to seeing more growth and the things that you come up with in Chicago Corner 2.0. So congratulations to you for getting out there. I mean, it's kind of scary to do that, to just kind of do something on your own like that, especially when you got other people involved.
I've joked with Ed, the Chicago Corner Manifesto is behind us. And we have now managed to manifest the Chicago Corner Emancipation Proclamation with our new worker-owned co-op.
Nice. Yes. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty. Free at last.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, this will be a great test to see if we can do this, and then maybe other people will get on board and try to do it too,
or join us.
Yeah.
And if not, the Chicago Corner brand and the logo have to have some value. We'll just sell it later and maybe, cut our losses and make our money back for what we had to pay to gain the channel to begin with. That we put all of our time and sweat equity.
Yeah. Open up a novelty shop. Sell tourist tchotchkes and we'll call the place Chicago
Corner. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that sounds all well and good, but
restaurant, bar. I like that bar idea. How about, you know what, Ed? A pizza place.
Ooh, that's not a terrible idea.
And you would run it and make the pizzas. That's our bailout plan. That's our plan B.
Chicago Corner Pizza.
There you go. I own the trademark.
That's not a terrible name for a pizza.
Not at all. Nah. That is a gold mine name, Ed.
Okay. All right.
Pizza in the front, news in the back. Like if
anybody is interested in giving us seed money to get restaurant going and also knows how to run restaurant business and knows people who actually know how to cook beyond pizza, because I'm one person, right? I like to do research and development. I like to bake. I like to cook. I like to eat. But I know I'm smart enough to know there's no way in hell I could run a restaurant.
No, but it'd be this is my point. It'd be your pizza recipes.
Yeah.
You would be guiding the chefs in the pizza kitchen. Okay.
Yeah.
And secondly, to this idea of, well, maybe people would give us money. Dude, we're an LLC now. We're open up to getting small business loans, not only to run Chicago Corner.
Business loan for a restaurant?
Why not?
Oh,
if things don't work out as a media entity.
Yeah. But Jerry, and Warren, I was looking recently at the prices of pizza ingredients, and I think we're going to wait a little while.
Okay.
Because holy cow, is shit expensive at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Not to mention the lease on the joint that you'd have to do it. You can't be just doing this out of your house. You'd have to actually go get a place, and those things.
Well, I'd say we should buy a property so we don't have to worry. Then we'd only be stuck with the property taxes.
Yeah, so that's probably your best bet.
Not pizza, start Chicago style lasagna. Well, a lot of people claim that deep dish pizza is essentially like a pizza lasagna. So.
Well, stuffed pizza is closer to that than deep dish, but that's a whole rabbit hole you guys don't want to do on this show.
Right. Deep dish is more like a child's kiddie pool. Only instead of water, there's pizza sauce and some cheese
and delicious sausage.
And the pool is made out of a crust.
Shared a little while ago. We should invite Lori Lightfoot onto the show, Ed, to do an exit interview.
Yeah.
Oh, but we can't do it. Even if we didn't get her, I'd say Ed should do the exit interview, but I think we're going to be limited in being able to do that because of the people.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. You are full of crap, and I'm never coming on your show ever again.
So much for that idea, Miguel.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is what you're going to get from Lori Lightfoot if you ask her on for the exit thing. Yeah, so that's
And we are in no way calling
pretty
her
sure.
out.
All right, guys. Well, it is we're getting into the deep part of the evening here on a Monday night, so I think we should probably wrap things up. So let me just say that once again, congratulations to you. And I know the kids in the chat are excited. People watching this now and later, because we do have a lot of same crossover of audience members. Like, even though yours is more Chicago based, we do have some people that watch both of the shows. So it's like, and I think that's why we're all such good friends too, is the fact that we're all trying to do the same things together. I mean, you obviously from the Chicago bent, and me doing it from a weirdo New Yorker bent on this end, with the crazy fake promos and stuff like that. So, but we're just trying to inform, and we're trying to entertain at the same time, because when you can entertain while you're informing, then the knowledge tends to not only get retained, then it often gets spread around too, because you want to share it with people. So
I'm noticing in the live chat, people are saying it's awfully late. It's almost 9:30 p.m. in Chicago and Central Time. Well, we at Chicago Corner are known to go long. That's what she said.
Hey-oh! What the? Wait a minute. There's an app for that. You might hear this bit.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much. So before we go, just tell her. I mean, we've got your information down below in the description. So if you want to contact you,
those are our Twitter handles.
You got the Twitter handles on there, but I think we also have the Chicago Corner link in there as well. If not, we will. Chicago Corner is on YouTube. It's on Rockfin and Odyssey, correct?
And it's Chicago. So people are basically our front doorstep on the web is chicagocornertv.com. All of our YouTube shows are set up that they can be found there, or you can just search YouTube or Rockfin for Chicago Corner. I think it's Chicago Corner or Chicago Corner TV. I can't keep track.
And we'll have the links for those channels as well.
And we have our own personal websites. I know that Ed has one he wants to share.
Yeah, I'll post my little merch. So I got edheller.com. I've had that for years.
Please
and you can find the link to my pizza website, which is realdeepdish.com. But I have merch also.
Yes, you do.
I have a ton of merch from different pieces of art that I've made over the years. The most recent stuff is pizza and or volcanoes. I suppose I should probably do a combo where there's a pizza volcano, but I haven't done that yet.
And it erupts pizza sauce. Ooh, and cheese.
So, and even
cheese.
if you're not a fan of Chicago pizza, I do have a design for New York pizza. It's I believe it was called the East Coast Slice Folding Armada T-shirt, and it's got a New York slice on it. I think Indy has one actually. I'll have to check and see if I think he bought one. The guy from Indy Left News or INN, those guys are fantastic. See, now they can grab that and use that for the next promo. You're welcome, Reef. I have my merch shop. If you go to edheller.com/merch, you'll see the pizza website. I also have one that one of my friends asked me to make for, she said, make a spork superhero site. I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, just make a logo of a spork. You guys know what a spork is? It's a combination of a spoon and a fork.
Oh, okay.
Right? Usually it's like a plastic thing that comes in with fast food restaurants. So I made a spork logo, and it's like, actually I made a few spork logos, and they're all kind of designed on t-shirts to look like you're a spork superhero. And you can you can customize your own or pick from the chosen ones, and it's a sports superhero shop.
Cool.
I know.
Super weird, right? But awesome, right?
I'll share some shameless personal plugs in the live chat. That's my production company website, www.nightstar.com. Or if you are a cane or crutch user like I am and need more stability walking with your cane or crutch, you should visit this next link, easywalkpads.com. I invented the product with my dad. We sell it on Amazon and through its own dedicated website. And hopefully your mobility will be improved, especially as we go into the spring and summer season where people are out and more active. And that does not mean disabled people aren't. They are. So this can hopefully help you, the easywalkpads.com.
Right on, right on. So you've got okay, so election coverage, election night tomorrow for Chicago. What time can people see the show tomorrow?
7:30 we start, Central Standard Time, 7:30.
Okay. And you have another show Friday night too. 8:30 Eastern. You have another show Friday night too, correct?
Yeah, we broadcast Tuesdays and Thursday nights starting at 8:30 Eastern Time.
Tuesday and Friday.
Tuesday and Friday. What did I say? Thursday? Sorry.
Yeah, maybe a Thursday gets thrown in the mix.
Checker, because when my mind is all over the place, he's just like, no. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I misspoke. So I'm glad that I've got Ed to help keep the records.
I'm like, wait, what did he just say? I'm like,
that's why I don't like doing shows alone. It's like you can't bounce off anything, and I know I'm going to say something fucked up at some point. And if nobody's there around to correct it, I'm not going to know. So, but yes, I think they call that safety in numbers. So, it's a good thing. And it's great to collaborate. It's great to work with people. It's great to collaborate, and I look forward to collaborating with you guys in the future, now that you are sailing the totally independent seas there. Yeah,
it'll be really fun to have you back on the show.
Well, there's some other opportunities we might be exploring with bigger ideas, and I'm glad we'll talk about them more. Little tease for the audience. There might be some bigger things on the horizon for all of us. So
that's right. And a few friends along the way too. So definitely stay tuned for that. So yes, and I think that will be a wonderful thing. Working. Like I said, just working with people in this space is just a joy to me, and having guys like you and Kira too come on and talk about these things, and I really do. I'm not saying that because I'm your buddy. I really do enjoy Chicago Corner. I was born, like I said, I was born in Chicago, so a part of my heart belongs to Chicago. And you guys really just make it feel like I'm coming home when I watch that show. So I thank you so much.
It's our online corner on the internet. I'm really glad. That means a lot. It's fulfilling to hear that people appreciate what we do, because we're just having fun. And it's, like Chicago Corner, we're getting together on the street corner and talking about stuff on a Tuesday, Friday night, maybe with a slice of pizza or something else or a beer. It's just like, we just have fun. But it is also a civic responsibility, as Ed mentioned earlier, to share the stuff mainstream media, commenting on the stuff mainstream media just finds too uncomfortable to actually comment on honestly, is how we see it.
And what do you guys always tag out with if it's happening on the streets?
You'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much. Hang on just a second. I'll give you a proper goodbye in just a moment. Okay. I just want to say goodbye to the chat, so hang on just 1 second. I want to thank everybody for hanging out. This was a fun evening. I love Misty. Misty's one of my favorite people, so having her on earlier. And she's always fantastic. She always comes with
maybe
the mad
now that
knowledge.
we're doing national stuff, we can talk to Misty on Chicago Corner.
I believe so. Yeah, I think that would be the thing
to
to do.
Anybody, Misty's cool.
But will she talk to us though, Ed?
Even us,
miscreants from Chicago.
Even us.
All right.
You can't get these Chicago guys to shut up. I swear to God. Guys in the chat, thank you so much. We love all of y'all. Yeah, and don't go changing Jerry and Ed, please, for nobody's sake. It's just stay cool, stay gold, Pony Boy. Thank you everybody who's watching this live and watching this in the future. I appreciate you. Like I said, we can, if you want to support the show, we've got it pinned in the chat. I will be back with Miss Jimmy on Saturday night for the Secret Show. And yeah, and so I'll be tuning into Chicago Corner tomorrow night to see what happens. So it's a tight race. I think it's going to be
Johnson squeaks through.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. So anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great night. Keep your ass clean, please. You know, there's too much dirt in this world. Just keep it off your ass. Because if it's happening on the streets, chances are I'm on the corner working and I'll see it. Good night, everybody. Peace out.